Sacred Symbols is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy, which can, well, help you right this very instant. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Learn more and save 10% off your first month of sessions at betterhelp.com/symbols. That's BetterHelp.com/SYMBOLS. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Tommy John and their extensive catalog of comfortable garments for both men and women. Go to TommyJohn.com/sacred right now. That's TOMMYJOHN.com/SACRED for 20% off your first order. That's 20% off your first order at TommyJohn.com/sacred. Again, that's TommyJohn.com/sacred for 20% off your first order of comfortable t-shirts, underwear, PJs, and more. See site for details. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number, I don't know what episode this is, 231. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Raygun. Hold. Gareth Honda wrote in to the show on Patreon, says, "Hey, Sacred Ones. Every time I listen, I can't help thinking you guys need to be checking your health. Colin, you seem to be doing just fine. But Chris, why do you get sick so much? When I was younger, I used to be sick as much as you, but then I got some bloods done. Turns out I was vitamin D deficient. Now I hardly get sick. Maybe there's something in it, or perhaps you've just been licking the gym equipment or something. Whilst on the subject, Dustin, have you booked your hand op yet? Keep up the great work, guys. Just don't go dying on us, Dustin. We'll get to you in a moment. Chris, welcome back to the show. Good to see you. You're healthy. You were on Sacred Symbols Plus, I think, after we did the regular show. So some people have seen you, but for the wide audience, you weren't here last week. Fallen ill again. The conspiracies have been wide ranging on Discord, on social media, DMs, etc. How are you doing? What is happening?
I'm doing all right. It's just, guys, I mean, unfortunately, I leave the house. And this is just sort of what happens, especially around now, especially like most people that I know were sick with something over the last week. It was just kind of going around. It was I think it's flu season. It's about that time, holidays, children touching fucking everything.
Right.
It's just a sick time. But I'm all right. I survived.
That reminds me that I saw on the news today, San Francisco child overdose. That a baby playing in a San Francisco park suffered a fentanyl overdose.
Oh my God.
Whoa. That's what's going on out on those streets.
God bless.
I left the house today. I actually had to go to the dentist.
Oh no.
And just for my normal cleaning, it's totally fine. Everything's fine. Everything's always fine. I like that clean bill of health. I don't care about my body in that way for some reason, but my eyes and my teeth for some reason. I'm like, yeah, I just need to know everything's okay.
Yeah.
And so now it was good because my appointment was at 11. Guys, I woke up at 1 p.m. yesterday. 1 p.m. And even I was like, guys, gotta do something about this. I mean, I can't be getting up at 1 in the afternoon. So
yeah, especially around this time of year where it gets dark at 4.
Right.
It's not a great time.
Right. It's a little Scandinavian in terms of my exposure to the sun, and it's totally true. And so I was glad that I had the dental appointment today because I was able to rise quicker. And on that note, Dustin Furman, you are also with us, executive producer of Last Stand. Welcome. How are you doing today, my friend?
Fantastic. Got all my stuff done early today, so I was just kind of able to hang out. And I'm just ready to record. Now, the thumb issue, basically non-existent right now. It went through one night where it hurt real bad, and then it pretty quickly faded away. So eventually, probably sometime in the next 12 months, it'll hurt again, and then I'll panic. But until then, I'm just not going to think about it. That's what adults do when you have health problems. Don't think about it. If it goes away, great. If not, you won't be thinking about it much longer anyway, usually.
Right.
So it's fun.
That went in a dark direction. I didn't anticipate that.
So does life,
Yeah,
you're up.
That's true. It was like I was saying on Sacred Symbols Plus that I'm on the spectrum of depressed to very depressed. That's it.
Mhm.
Like the best I can hope for is depression. That is life, and we deal with it the best ways that we can.
Sure.
And of course, we do that here on Sacred Symbols as well. We go up each and every week. Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, somehow the world's biggest PlayStation podcast. Unsure how that ever happened. Unsure how long that will continue. I don't know. I mean, we've been going pretty strong for a while now. We're nearing 5 years. I mean, we're not that near to it, but we're about a half a year away.
That's pretty crazy.
5 years of doing this show. It is crazy because that is actually rivaling the time I did Podcast Beyond, which is what I was most famous for. So, in quotes, famous. But welcome all. Thank you so much for your support on Patreon. Patreon.com/laststandmedia. We are the biggest games media or games network, games podcast network, let's say, on Patreon. And we couldn't do it without you. The $5 tier, $5 a month, is the most popular tier, and that gets you early ad-free access, the ability to submit your questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas, and so on and so forth. There are other tiers below and above that to explore as well. And thank you so much. This allows us not to do endemic advertising. You'll never see us advertise a video game. We don't get early games from PR. We don't deal with marketing. We don't do preview coverage. None of that. And that's all thanks to you. So thank you so much for that. What else? We have some merch. I actually just retweeted a picture because, what was his name? Let's see. Anthony Vasquez tweeted at us at me, Last Stand, and Micah, and said, "My wife just sent me a picture of the package with the caption, 'What?' Well done." And then it's just a picture of the stickers, the Pope stickers and the Crying Jim stickers. Thank you so much for your support over there on laststandmedia.store. Micah turning into an Oliver Twist character once again as she worked through the weekend to get all the packages out. We really appreciate her hard work there as well. We sold out of a bunch of stuff, which we appreciate. Stickers coming back. Now, here's the new thing I want to do, guys. I'm curious how you feel about this. Next Pope sticker. Let's find a Renaissance painting. We could find a more medieval or Dark Ages painting too. It's going to be much more rudimentary though. But if we can find a Renaissance painting of a Pope doing something with the host, I think it would be fun to have like a painted version next.
Sure.
As opposed to a photorealistic version. And eventually I fear we're going to run out of popes. Hopefully they start going through them a little more quickly. I don't know.
Yeah.
This guy that's been around now, I can't believe how long he's been around. It's I'm like, wow, he's been around for a while. That, he's like the Hispanic guy. He's like the really like socialist liberal dude. And he's interesting, but we've already done a sticker with him, I think. And I don't know. I mean, how much, then you're getting into like random, you can just say a name. Pius the Seventh.
Wow.
Urban the Third. Yeah. I mean, these are all people, They're out. I implore some of you will go look at the names of the popes. Some crazy. They just make them up.
Yeah, it's like an AI generated kind of person. I would imagine
it's like a BuzzFeed quiz. What's your pope name based on your birth date?
Yeah,
and what you ate for lunch.
It's like those friends. It's like those friends quizzes. Like, I'm more of a Benedict.
Indeed. And of course, one of the perks over on Patreon is Sacred Symbols Plus, which we do twice a week. Those are supplemental Patreon only podcasts that we do to round out Sacred Symbols. That's where we go deep onto different games. We do the Sacred League and the Sacred Sales Saga there every month now, which are awesome. Sacred Symbols Cross Defining Duke with our friends over on Defining Duke, the Xbox podcast. We just did the first of a 2-part rankings that we will studio rankings that we will do every year. Although, as someone told me, I was so autistic that I wanted to do it every quarter. Dustin, I told you to shut up in that podcast. Now, it was a joke. I don't know if you read it like that. I'm not much of a yeller, as I think people in my life know. So whenever I raise my voice, it's usually a joke. Like I'd get into fights with an ex-girlfriend of mine back in the day, and she would say like, "You yelled at me about that." And I'm like, "You and I both know I didn't yell at you about anything." You know what I mean? Like, come on, let's be serious. So I wanted to apologize for that if that came off as serious, but I think it wasn't. But some of the audience, I think, thought it was a little uncomfortable. So I want to apologize about that. That's why I didn't say anything beforehand. So I wanted to be authentic and unexpected.
Whoa. Unexpected.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I in the moment, it did come off a little intense, but I understand the intent.
Yeah. Shut up.
Yeah.
Right. There you go.
Exactly. Yes. But, no, it's all good. So that was a good episode though.
Yeah.
People, now here's the thing. I saw, there's some interesting feedback that we already did this in 2020. I guarantee that listening to these 2 episodes, they're completely different.
Yeah, it's so goofy. Like, people are like, you already did it. And I'm like, yeah, we did 3 episodes on The Last of Us Part 2, and you still want us to do more of them. What are you even talking about? Since we did the list last time, I think PlayStation has bought 4 teams. I think something like 5 AAA first-party games have come out. I think once a year is totally appropriate. In my mind, I was thinking that it would be like more of like a gut check thing, but I wasn't intending on it to go so long.
Yeah.
So in the format that it did, I think we have stumbled upon the right answer, which is to just do 2 episodes a year, but they're both the same. So there's part 1 and part 2. And that's just to give everyone there, so you don't rush along. Like, we were an hour and a half deep. And I couldn't believe it. We still had more than halfway to go. And like, we hadn't even talked about the great teams yet. So I'm looking forward to recording the next one there as well. Merch at lastdaymedia.store. We already talked about that. Clips channel. Go support that on YouTube. That's still going. And we got a new Lockmort video up, and we wanted to give him a little bit of a shout out here. Tony Rivera wrote in and said, "Hello, sacred gentlemen. Hope you are well. Writing in to ask, can we all just take a moment to honor the true hero of this outfit, Sir Lockmort? Like Strider at the Inn of the Prancing Pony, he is silently watching and listening in the background, but provides us sacred followers with the unbridled gospel, and that is Colin's true game of the year being Elden Ring. The chosen watchman of the gamer battalion, Sir Lockmort, never stands down from painting the headlines with an angry Long Islander's sad journey through denial. One so wrought with agony that he goes so far as to banish his loved fiancée for sparring with him. The people have spoken. There's only one Elden Ring to rule them all. It's 97. Thank you for that. This new Lockmort video, which for people that don't know, we put on YouTube, and they're basically cut up versions of sacred symbols that make it look like something else is happening that didn't happen or wasn't said. And it's fun. And Lockmort does those and surprises us with those. This new one is roundly being considered as the best one yet. It was very well. And it was funny because Dustin messaged me and was like, do you want me to do this? Because it really calls attention to the God of War, Horizon, Last of Us stuff that's bringing me a lot of heat right now. And I'm like, I don't care. It's funny. And so I'm glad. Thank you. I agree. Lockmort's wonderful. He also hasn't invoiced me in a long time. So
he told me in the last day or two he was going to before the end of the year. He said, do it soon.
Yeah, definitely. And I owe him. I have to pay him in euros. So God only knows what I owe you. I have no idea. Yeah. I'd probably send you some firewood.
That edit though was that was one of my favorite ones. I thought it was really, because it felt like it could potentially, like if somebody did not know the show, they could see that edit and be like, that's the show, probably. Like it, because otherwise, normally you can tell like, oh, it's like a fun YouTube poop kind of situation, but like this one was so funny.
Well, and it's fun too if you go and watch some of the early Last Stand Lockmort videos. They do consistently get better. We have a true craftsman on our hand, one who consistently outdoes himself. I'm sure the pressure is just immense, but Lockmort, you're the real one, the real OG. We love you. You do an amazing job. I love when I get to post it, because I get to see the reactions in real time. And I see people that are like, I literally spit my drink on my screen. I can't breathe right now. Stuff like that. And it's great. So Lockmort, you're the best.
And it's as you said, Chris, too, that I saw a comment. I was just looking forward to see if I could find it on YouTube, but I couldn't. Someone had written something like, this is who everyone thinks Colin is. Like, like that don't listen to the show and just hear about it. Like they would think that this is actually the show. And I'm like, that's perfect. I hope that is true. And finally, I just wanted to give a last shout out to, we're doing Last Stand Live in Houston, Texas. Tickets are still available. And Miguel Valoy wrote in and said, good day, Sacred Bros. So I wanted to ask, would you allow someone to propose at one of your live shows in front of the entire battalion with the anthem blasting in the background? I don't know. Here's my thing about this. Again, sports references. You see every once in a while the denial, the engagement denial on the Jumbotron at a Lakers game or something.
Oh, yeah.
And that's rough. That's really rough. Sometimes I think it's a setup, but other times it's authentically awkward. And so I'm wondering, do we do this or don't we?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Authoritarian Chris here.
Yeah.
Listen, man, That is, I don't know how you don't end up murdered. Proposing to your girlfriend at a live podcast show. Like I feel like you gotta be a little bit better than that. You gotta put a little bit more.
You can do better than us.
No, I'm just saying, it's like, can you imagine? Because then what if that relationship goes badly, and then now like we're somehow tied into it mentally to this guy? Like, look, just do something nice. Go to a really nice scenic outdoor place, or go to like your guys' favorite. Like, I don't know, just do something that's specific. If for some reason both of your favorite places are our live shows, then I guess God bless, that's perfect. But unless those stars align perfectly, I don't know, man.
Right.
I don't know.
She's got to be just as excited as you are for the live show to even entertain the idea.
Yeah, because let's be real. Like, you don't, as the guy, generally speaking, you don't really care where your proposal takes. You know, that's a woman's story. You know, she's going to have to tell that story.
Right. That's right.
Really. So, like, just be considerate, I guess, is all I'm saying.
It's so funny you say that, because I was really thinking of that too when I asked Micah to marry me. It went through my mind, should I do it at the Richmond show? Like, and my sister, I just had mentioned it to my sister, and she's like, you absolutely should not do that. And I'm like, I know. I like literally just threw it out there. I was never actually going to do that. Here's the thing. It is about the effort, and you can't use us as your effort. You have to put in the effort. You know?
Right.
So Miguel, come to the show, hang out with us. Tickets are basically almost gone. I was looking at them yesterday, and everything on the floor is gone. I think you can only get mezzanine seats now, but that's cool. That's what you want.
Those are
hang out with us in Houston.
Yeah. Yeah, the balcony seats. Ben posted a photo. I think I mentioned that. But if that's holding you back, don't let it. I actually think some of the balcony seats are better than the floor seats, from what I can tell. I've not been there.
When I go to shows sometimes, especially as an older person now, in quotes, older person, I like to be in the, not that this is a rock show where people are going to be going nuts, but it's like you get great views up there of the band, and you're not in the craziness of it, and you just the idea of being, sometimes you're in a great show. Like I went to see Faith No More once, and I was next to a guy who kept handing me his joint, which I thought was really cool. And we smoked and had a great time. That was like a wonderful experience. But then you have the people next to you that you're at a, I don't know, you're at like a fucking corn show, and, and they want to act like you're seeing Soil Work or fucking Hatebreed and really going off. And it's like, dude, you just chill a little bit,
Yeah.
Just chill out a little bit. What's going on here? Shout out, by the way, to both Hatebreed and Soil Work and anyone who likes those bands. Okay. Let's move on. It's time to get into some things that people have written into us about. And I say we go into them in earnest. They've given us quite a variety of discussion points, but I want to start with this one. I always like giving people a little bit of insight. People wonder why we do things, why the things they are the way they are. Do you ever notice that, Dustin? They always wonder why are things the way they are. Well, that strong nerd wrote in and said, "Hey, Colin, curious. I know you are a connoisseur of Boar's Head. I'm actually a truck driver that delivers their product to my local grocery stores, H-E-B, here in Texas. Chris is going to get a package. And honestly, I just want to say thank you. Every time you say you do the show for the blue collar workers out there, it makes me feel appreciated. My days go smoother and much more high spirited when I know I have a show queued up. But is there any way you can publish the show earlier? I start my day at 4 a.m. So when the show is published at 11 a.m. my time, I'm getting ready to leave for the day. I'm sure I can speak for every blue collar worker in the community that it would be highly appreciated, but I do know that the editing situation and how it could be an issue time-wise. So I'm making the executive decision to move Sacred Symbols to be recorded Wednesdays, edited Thursdays, and published Friday or early morning. I understand that it will have to push everyone's schedule, but well, oh well. All joking, I love everything LSM does, and I can't wait to see you all at LSM in February in the front row. Oh, that's cool. We'll see you there. Thank you for your kind words. So the thing I wanted to get into here, Dustin, from a procedural point of view, and this is because nothing's really random. Noon is the time we chose. It was noon, I actually think, when I was in California too, which was, I think, right, wasn't it? So it was 3 p.m. here, or maybe it was 9 a.m. there. But regardless, we choose a consistent time and then just try to hit that time so that people can develop an expectation that things will arrive by or around this time, which they pretty much always do. And that's enough breathing room for things to go wrong, for exports to fail. Sometimes we find things very late that we want to edit out. we edited out an ad from the last video that we decided we didn't want to run, and all of the rest. And we had all that time because it kind of gives us a little time to marinate. There have been moments where I go in the next morning when a show's about to publish, listen to something, and I'm like, nah, I want to change this. And the video ends up being a little bit late, but I like having that. I like not having to settle on the show right when it's published. The only difference about timing is when I feel like it's a really big topic. I think when the VGAs happen, not because it's the VGAs, but because I think games will be announced, we might push that one out immediately, like as soon as we can, just because I think people will be excited about that. But generally speaking, we just want to hit that noon time, gives everyone enough time to sort everything out. The reason we record on Thursdays is to give the week enough time to mature and produce news and all of those things. And so when the show goes live for patrons, and especially when it goes live for over the weekend, after the weekend passes for public feeds, that it's not out of date. We used to record, I think, on Tuesdays, right? When we started the show, or Wednesday, something like that. And publish, or we might have even recorded Mondays.
I think we recorded
Tuesdays.
Monday.
And that was stupid. I mean, we had to change that immediately. That was just a dumb idea. So I think recording Thursdays and publishing on Patreon Friday, and then for public feeds on Mondays, I think that allows us to kind of field everything the best and keep it most up to date for everyone. So again, there's a reason why all these things happen. They might not be good reasons, but those are the reasons nonetheless. I'm going to take a quick drink here. By the way, that strong nerd, keep the boar's head deliveries coming. Essential. And we all know it. Ryan Palermo wrote in, I like this one. He says, hey there, CDC. The opening segment of Sacred often goes sideways, but one bit caught my ear a few weeks back. Chris asked who would be on the $20 bill in Colin's America. Almost instantly, Colin hit him with Maury Povich as a response. I'm with Colin in this choice. Maury is genuinely a man of the people, but what really caught my ear is what followed. Colin remarked that he and Micah often toy around with prospective baby names, and what perhaps started as a joke, the idea of Maury Moriarty as a name, had some real panache. So to remind people, I was saying that we were kidding around that, and we were like, actually, that's kind of dope. A month and a half ago, my wife welcomed our first son into this world, and his name is Palmer Palermo. Sorry for the light doxing, son, he says in parentheses. The alliteration and similarities in sounds between names initially felt strange, but now feels unique and definitely fits his burgeoning personality. People perk up when they hear it, and he often gets compliments on it. Go with your gut on this one, Colin, but my question is for the other sacred dudes. If you had a child, what would you name it? It's only a decision that impacts someone else for around 70 years or so no pressure. Love the work, guys. Much love from North Carolina. Thank you, Ryan, for writing in. You guys can answer that question if you'd like or not, but I wanted to give a shout out to Ryan for exceptional alliteration. And I just want to reiterate that alliteration is probably the most powerful thing you can have in the English language, in my opinion, if you want it to sound really good. That punchiness that really comes from that dramatic guttural language that we speak. Very inelegant, gross language compared to a lot of other languages. But one of the things is you are able to have those punches, and they don't sound quite as Germanic, like, like someone's fucking yelling at you. But it's like a step back from that. Palmer Palermo. That kid's set. That kid's going to be the coolest kid in his class. That kid's going to get the girls. He's going to be the quarterback of the football team. Palmer Palermo. How is that not going to be the quarterback of the football team in high school?
It's a very fictional name.
I agree.
And that's kind of
white lights.
Yeah. It's like superheroes and stuff where it's like Peter Parker, Bruce Banner, and in Iron Man's case, Tony Stoney or whatever the fuck. I think it draws too much attention for me personally. I think it's a good choice for you, but I would want. I wouldn't settle on a name quite yet, but I feel like if I were to choose a name, it would be like a really inconspicuous one. It would be one that draws no attention. You got to work for attention. Yeah, you can't just be handed it like that. I don't like that.
I am glad though, because the name thing is true, and my brother Dagan, who we do the show with, everyone knows, he always jokes around on our show Knockback about how mom and dad really did him a real disservice by naming him Dagan. And he's saying not today, but he's like, imagine growing up with that name in the 70s. And in the 80s, he's like, yeah, it was great. And then they named me Colin, which I love my name, but Colin, all that kind of stuff. I learned what a colon was from people calling me that.
Of course.
When I was a kid. I didn't even know what a colon was. So it is a serious thing, but I think my parents generally got our names right. My sister Allie is named after my grandfather. Alessandro. And my sister Dana, I have no idea. That was a very common name in the 70s too, but they did a pretty good job. But I feel like we all have pretty strong names actually here on Sacred Symbols. Very, very, very assertive names.
Oh,
Maldonado, Maldonado. Dustin Furman, very American. Dustin Furman, love it.
American,
love it.
Wow.
Don't you think?
Yeah.
Don't you think?
I've never heard it described that way, but you said it and I felt empowerment. So
good.
Yeah.
It feels good.
You sound like a dad on like a 70s sitcom, you know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like a very American name.
Sure. Yeah,
right.
Definitely. Archie Bunker. So Maury Moriarty is a real consideration if we ever have a kid. I think that there's something to that. But we have kind of a name picked out already that I want to use. And I'm not going to say what it is until it happens, but it is connected to Long Island. And my love of history, of course. All right. Ryan, congratulations, by the way, on your child. Can't wait for him to have a 95 quarterback rating and a 5-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Curology, the easy and effective skincare regimen that you can discover at Curology.com/sacred. My friends, winter is upon us and my skin is feeling the effects of dry artificial heat, the outdoor cold, of course, and the general malaise of darker days, which, come to think of it, doesn't really have anything to do with skin. Nonetheless, in these trying and dry times, I found that my friends at Curology come through in the clutch, making my skin feel healthier against such daunting climactic odds. So, and pardon my pun, here's the rub. Curology is a suite of high-quality skincare products that circulate around a prescription cream made specifically for your needs. It's then buttressed by other products, such as their skin cream that I'm absolutely in love with, and a cleanser that will make your skin feel cleaner than perhaps it ever has. And dare I say, it works, and I would know, since I've used Curology products for several years now. My friends, if you want ultra-easy skincare that's actually made for your skin, Curology is the way to go. You'll get a custom prescription cream made for you by a dermatology provider for your specific goals, whether that's tackling acne, clogged pores, skin texture, dark spots, fine lines, or something else. You start by taking a short online skin quiz, and if it's a good fit, they'll ship your formula right to your door. Now you can get all sorts of Curology-related goods, including lip balm, body wash, and even emergency spot patches, not to mention all the other stuff. But the product I love the most is their moisturizer. It's the highest quality moisturizer I've ever used, especially as, if you've not gotten the hint yet, I suffer from really dry skin. I love Curology, and I think you will too, so why not give them a try and target your skin issues just like me? Get started with Curology just like I did, with a free 30-day trial at Curology.com/sacred. That's Curology.com/SACRED. You just pay $5 for shipping and handling. Again, that's Curology.com/sacred to start your free 30-day trial. Cancel anytime, prescription subject to consultation. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by Tommy John and their extensive catalog of comfortable garments for both men and women. Discover more and save 20% off your first order right now at TommyJohn.com/sacred. It's the season of gift giving, and it's also therefore the season of savings, at least if you know where to look. And well, if you're looking for high-quality underwear, sweatpants, socks, bras, shirts, PJs, and more, you needn't look any further than Tommy John, a company that specializes in comfort with a capital C. Many internet stores come and go, but Tommy John has developed a strong reputation for quality that makes it amongst digital retail's most recognizable brands. Indeed, they have a fanatical consumer base with many customers that have been with them since the very beginning, going back 14 years. That's an eternity online. And their loungewear is meant to fit perfectly, with non-pilling fabric that holds up to wear and tear. But what I think makes me most excited to try Tommy John loungewear for myself, the whole shebang, undies and pajama pants, all of it, is that, like many, I live for comfort. I work from home, so I basically never get dressed in real clothes. Who would know maximum comfort better than yours truly? But what's even more exciting is the notion of sharing the gift of Tommy John with a loved one. Shop Tommy John right now and get 20% off your first order. It doesn't matter what you put into your cart, shirts, undies, bras, whatever. If it's your first time shopping with Tommy John, they're going to take 20% right off the top, no questions asked. Go to TommyJohn.com/sacred right now. That's TommyJohn.com/SACRED for 20% off your first order. That's 20% off your first order at TommyJohn.com/sacred. Again, that's TommyJohn.com/sacred for 20% off your first order of comfortable t-shirts, underwear, PJs, and more. See site for details. AP3 wrote in, said, Aloha CDC. This question is mainly for Colin and Dustin due to Chris's absence from the last Sacred Symbols episode. The conversation about the ABK deal and how Sony had somehow gained significant ground on the deal not going through was quite fair for both Microsoft and Sony in terms of analysis. I've listened to other video game personalities on various platforms, and they seem to be attacking your guys' opinions about this matter. These YouTube channels being Dealer Gaming and Colt Eastwood, to be specific. They have said that they would love to have Colin on the show to debate about the ABK deal and how Game Pass is profitable, but have not gotten a response from you guys. Would you guys entertain a debate with other video gaming personalities for our own amusement about the ABK deal and Game Pass being profitable? Thanks for the amazing content and take care. I have to be honest, I've not heard from anyone about these things. I don't read the internet. So like, you know, I'm not really like spending my time like I used to, like looking for things. Especially when I was at IGN, I would like seek that stuff out to annoy myself. These days, I'm like, whatever. I appreciate that people listen to the show. I know that the show has a great deal of influence in the space at large and in the PlayStation space specifically. When people invite me on their shows, I usually go on. I have not heard from these people. So no one's reached out to me. I mean, I'm fairly easy to get in touch with. You just have to go through one of my intermediaries. And typically that would be Dustin or Micah, and they'll get you in touch, or you can just DM on Patreon. And I don't think you have to be a patron to do that. That's basically how I get in touch with people. But I don't really otherwise see. I heard on our Discord that there was a lot of discourse about that podcast. Yeah. But I didn't see any of it or whatever. Now, do I want to go and do these shows and talk about it? I'm happy. I don't want to debate anything. I don't know that we need to do that, but I'm happy to have discussions about anything. I can very easily make the case for why Game Pass isn't profitable. That's not a hard case to make at all. And the ABK deal, the virtues of it, I don't know what there would really be to discuss about that, but we can talk about that for sure. I think some people were, as far as I understood from Discord, were annoyed that I was saying that, some games, like the Bethesda games, Microsoft doesn't deserve credit for those games and stuff. And I'm like, they don't, they don't. But here's right. But here's the thing, and I'll let you go, Dustin. But I'm happy to do any show that anyone wants. I'm totally fine. But there's got to be a few rules. Number one, you got to do better than that salty gamer guy. Yeah. Like that was bad news. And it's just got to be better than that. And if I have to explain why Call of Duty and Final Fantasy 16 are different, and I really have to explain that, and I have to explain why buying Bethesda and buying Housemarque are different and all of that, I feel like we're probably not speaking the same language. But happy to do those things regardless. Happy to do it not only in an adversarial way, but in any way. But you got to raise the bar higher. that salty gaming podcast. I don't know what that was all about. That was what was I expected more. You don't remember that when that guy like was calling me out, so I went on his podcast, and then he did so badly that he deleted it off the internet.
When was this?
I have it. I have the full version of it still. This was probably last year or something like that.
Oh wow, that was a while ago then.
Yeah.
All right.
I think that put some people off from inviting me onto their shows because that just went so badly for him. But that was not intentional. That was just him being ill prepared. I'm happy to have these various conversations, but the reason I wanted to bring it up, Dustin, was because I have not heard from any of these people saying like, come on the show, because I always say yes to these things. Like I'm not a hard person to convince and cajole. Like I've never been.
And you're really, I mean, to get in a one-on-one conversation might be tough, but you're not a hard person to reach out to. We mention on almost every show that you can DM our Patreon. So saying you haven't heard back sounds, to put it nicely, very funny to us, because it's not that hard to.
They're probably not reaching out to the proper channels. It's probably
I mean, they could be messaging Facebook or something, but it's like we don't read that. So
yeah, Facebook, or like even just like maybe like a mention on Twitter or something, and it's like I don't think you're checking mentions on Twitter all that often.
No, I really don't read them. So like that. I've tried to be, as I removed myself from Twitter, as everyone knows, like more than a year ago, I just read it now, but I've actually just stopped reading my mentions, mostly because my mentions have ceased. And then, so that's kind of like, because I'm not saying anything, so no one's saying anything to me, and so on and so forth. So I've just kind of gone through. There are times where I'm like, wow, I haven't looked at my mentions in a few days, And then it's usually people talking about other things. I have no idea what anyone's talking about. I missed the conversation. It was 2 days ago, all that kind of stuff. But happy to do these various shows. And yeah, I'm surprised how upset people are about things that are so easy to defend. It's not like it's going to be difficult for me to go and defend Game Pass not being profitable. That's not going to be difficult to defend. Like, it's not going to be difficult to defend why something like Call of Duty being exclusive and Final Fantasy 16 being exclusive might draw the different levels of ire of regulators. I can make that argument. I can make the argument about why buying Bethesda is a different thing than buying any of the studios Sony's ever bought. I can defend the claim of organic growth. I can do all those things. It's easy.
Yeah.
So happy to do it. Reach out and let me know. It might have to wait till January because we're getting into depending, it could happen soon, but we're shutting down next week and we're going to try to take 3 weeks off. So, but wanted to throw that out there. Any other last thoughts, Dustin?
Yeah, I would say now that you've put that out, you're going to have 1 million people ask you to be on your podcast. Just, I'm assuming you would be very selective just because I think that I'm not talking about the 2 creators that were referenced in this write-in, but based on the Twitter stuff last week is just like, there's some people that have a lot more to gain from you appearing on their content than anything else.
Yeah. We'll vet it. Yeah, totally. You're right. I'm usually much more loose because I like doing smaller podcasts. I think that's fun. And it's cool to do for them to have, like a bigger audience and all that. So I try to do those nice things. But you're right. You don't want people to like try to dunk on us to get one on us to bring people over there or whatever. You're right.
Right.
I probably should do it. Like there should be a place to do it and for it to be done. But I'm just surprised that these are the different bones people want to pick just because like I look at those and I'm like, I say way more contentious things than that. That's nothing as far as I'm concerned. I made the case for the Game Pass thing last week by simply saying that I think money in and money out is probably net profit for them, but it doesn't take into account the holistic mathematical equation that's required. That's not a hard argument to make. So I'm happy to go on about that for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So AP3, I hope that answers your question. Thank you for writing in. All right. Dylan Michael, I thought this was funny. He said somebody needs to set the record straight because I did see someone mention this on Discord too. Oftentimes, Colin will bend over in his chair and show his voluptuous scalp off to the camera for 10 or 15-second periods. He'll do it multiple times in a row, too. Colin, boy, are you snorting fat lines during the show? Do you expect me to believe that you take on this posture of an Argentine red shrimp out of comfort? I don't buy it. We already know Kyle hits his vape constantly during the show, so a few lines of booger sugar would go along just fine. What's going on here? I've noticed that people bring this up, so I have to be honest. I'm going to be totally honest with you. I've never done coke. Never once in my life. I've been around it. I know people that have done it, but I've never, seen it, of course, but I've never done it. It's not, I've never done any of that kind of stuff. Like the more artificial stuff. Marijuana, I mean, I'll swim in it, but I don't need to do any of that any of that other stuff. So the answer is no, I'm not doing lines. What I'm actually doing is writing. When I want something to be really neat, I lean into it. And the position of the camera, I think, is making it seem much more like curved over like a crustacean than I actually feel or am. Like the Fibonacci sequence, whatever they call that thing, like that.
Oh yeah.
So
the golden spiral or whatever.
The golden spiral, exactly. I actually saw a meme a few weeks ago of a golden, like some kid playing on his phone, and the Fibonacci sequence was put over it perfectly.
Yeah, just hunched over.
Yeah, perfect. But golden. No, I'm not doing lines. I'm sorry to disappoint. Not doing lines. I don't know that's smoking. I've never done coke, so I don't know how it would make me feel. But as I understand it, that's the opposite of smoking weed. And I feel like I'd be like going off if I was doing coke,
Yeah.
Have you ever seen me go off? I don't know. I don't think I've ever gone off before.
No, man, I think it's funny to compare the two in that way. It's like, oh, you're already hitting your vape. Why not? You might as well be doing coke. And it's like, these are very different things. It's, maybe chill for just a moment in time.
That would be awesome if I was just doing coke during Sacred Symbols. That'd be fucking hysterical.
I've never seen coke before. Ever.
Really?
Mm-mm.
I first saw it in college.
Never been around it.
And I was friends with a few people that would do it, at parties or whatever when I was in San Francisco. I mean, a lot of drug use there. I think I said when I was hired at IGN and I asked them if they were going to drug test me at Fox, the person laughed and said we would never hire anyone at Fox if we drug tested our employees. So yeah. So that was like really my first taste at 22 years old that something's amiss here.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere. I saw coke. I remember the first time I saw coke was and this is real, at Taylor Swift's house, because there was I'm not even kidding. This is real. I was dating a model at the time, this Instagram person, and we were just out on the town or whatever, and we were at a bar, and somebody goes, "Hey, there's going to be a party at this place. Do you want to go?" And I was like, I guess, whatever. I'm already out. I'm so far from my apartment. I might as well just see where this goes. And we end up at this house, and it's huge, and like a bunch of people are there, and I'm like, what do we like? I immediately felt out of place. I was like, what am I doing here? And I went to the bathroom, and people were doing coke in the bathroom. I was like, I really got to go to the bathroom. This really sucks. So I was like, and so I was leaving, and I didn't know until we were leaving whose house it was, because I guess it was like her family also owns the house, and it was like some degenerate member of her family throwing a party in her house while she was gone or something. And I guess she has more than one house, I assume. But it was so fucking bizarre that's my first. That's the first time I saw coke. That's a very real story.
That's awesome.
Wow,
it's ridiculous.
Shout out.
So dumb.
Yeah, coke's a serious drug. I in my opinion, I think pot's totally fine. You know, mushrooms were a big thing in college.
Yeah.
And I think I've said before, and I mean, it's to each his own. I'm not saying that anyone should do anything. I really want to do acid because a lot of very deep thinkers that I respect and appreciate really say that it unlocks something in your mind and you go places. And I want to know what that's all about. I think that's
kind of
really
the same thing with shrooms also.
Right.
It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, but when we would do shrooms, we would just go to the Pink Floyd laser light show like a bunch of idiots. Yeah.
Dude.
I wouldn't be trying to like, I can't believe we even did things like that, because that makes me nervous just thinking about that. Like, what are you doing? Well, I didn't care about anything back then. But but I really think you gotta draw the line at the white powder, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, heroin and all this meth and all this shit. I mean, that shit's crazy. People act like it all mixes up, Chris, but it's like, no, there's a pretty clear line between the things that I think are okay and the things that aren't in my mind.
That's not what we were taught, Chris. We were taught all drugs equal. That right? Kill you.
Exactly. That's what when we were growing up, that was the big thing. It's like marijuana is cocaine is heroin.
Yeah.
And so when I first started smoking weed, and I was like, it's like a Who Cried Wolf kind of situation where it's like, oh well, if marijuana is that tame and boring, then who's to say that this other shit isn't? And honestly, like I've met so many people who, I mean, look, there are people who do coke who function perfectly fine. It's still like a line I wouldn't cross. But like the second you're like injecting shit into your bloodstream and you're like cooking shit in a spoon, I think that to me is like, I'm all right. I'm all right with weed and maybe shrooms every few years or something.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's there's just such a clear line between what I think is okay and what isn't, and everyone has to do what they want to do. I've always respected the straight edge thing, which was kind of big when I was younger, like the nautical star and all that kind of shit. And I was just like, I don't know, I appreciate what you're doing, but I'm gonna go get fucked up at the bar. I respect it, but I'm gonna go get drunk. So thank you. All right, what were we talking about? Who was that wrote in?
Dylan
Michael. Dylan Michael, thank you. I'm sorry to disappoint. Yeah, I'm not a drug abuser. Well, not that drug anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Liam Venencia wrote in, said, "Hey, Sacred Gents. I believe Dustin made comments last week about people still buying Pokemon even though it's in broken state, and I believe I have some insight into this type of people who buy this no matter what, autistic teenagers. As a special needs teacher, my days are bombarded by incessant nonsense about Pokemon, Five Nights at Freddy's, Roblox, and Sonic the Hedgehog. This week, I showed them the trailer for God of War Ragnarok with not one single one of them showing an ounce of interest. But when showing them the technical performance of Pokemon Scarlet, all they cared about was how cute and awesome the monsters looked. Hell, one student refused to watch the new Super Mario Brothers movie trailer because of some weird allegiance to Sega. Just some anecdotal insight into how some companies get away with the bare minimum, I guess. Stay well and keep up the awesome work." I just thought that was a funny letter.
Man, who has an allegiance to Sega in 2022?
Yeah, that's crazy. That is wild.
Wow. What are you playing, Saturn?
Man.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah. I just wanted to read that one. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's golden.
There might be something to that, though.
Sure.
There definitely is something connecting those brands.
I have long theorized that Sonic's big eyes are easier to read for people on the spectrum, and that's why people like. I've just noticed this. This isn't even like a derogatory thing. I'm just noticing
I love
that is like something that like, because there are autistic people in my family as well who like are also just coincidentally super into it, and it's just like at a certain point, it's like, look, it's been a coincidence for a long time. at this point. So I think it's safe to say there's something, but that is a hilarious letter.
Well, let's look at it the other way, though. If that's true, then is my aghast and pure hatred of Sonic the Hedgehog, although I fear Sonic the Hedgehog, we've made that clear. I fear Sonic the Hedgehog, but I hate Sonic the Hedgehog. Does that mean, because people are always like, Colin, you're autistic. And I'm like, hey, maybe, I don't know. But I hate Sonic. Hate it.
You see, here's the secret to this, right? Is that you have a strong emotional reaction to Sonic the Hedgehog, which is the key point. that is the difference. If you really love Sonic the Hedgehog, then it's pretty clear you're autistic. If you really hate him, by the way, I'm probably autistic as well, based on this.
Yeah.
But I don't think there is an autistic person out there who thinks Sonic is just like, all right, yeah, whatever. I don't think that exists.
Huh. That's very
Where are you at
interesting.
on the Sonic barometer?
I can't stand him.
The Sonic spectrum, actually, I guess.
Sonic spectrum, yeah.
Yeah, that should be what it's called now from here on.
Wow.
Well, thank you for writing it. I just thought that was a great letter.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't be writing it about your students like that.
Probably not, yeah. Not with your real name, anyway.
Yeah, who knows? That might be your fucking fake name. I don't know. I don't know anything about it. Josh P. wrote in and said, hey, CDC, Spotify Wrapped for this year is out, and I'm wondering if we can get a little peek at the music you listen to this year. Love the show. Thanks. Do you guys use Spotify?
I do.
I do, too.
I have Apple Music.
Use that. Do they have their own kind of thing?
I have the Apple Music Replay.
Okay, so it's the same thing.
Yes.
So anything interesting on yours this year, Dustin? Tell me about it.
I'm looking at my top artists. Do we want to do top 5?
Yeah, hit us with those. Hit us.
Number 1, new artist for me this year, Oliver Tree. 2, Iron Maiden, getting ready for that concert. 3, Jimmy World. 4, Kendrick Lamar. And 5, Thrice.
Interesting.
There you go.
Interesting. Mine was actually weird. A little weird, but in some ways not weird. 311, Dredge, Limp Bizkit.
Oh,
because of that new record. I think I just listened to it constantly. And then The Fix, and then Real Life. So just right into the 80s with The Fix and Real Life. But what was interesting here, top 5 songs, Catalyst by Ocean Size, which was this like post-rock song I discovered, which is awesome. Covenant's Dead Stars, which is a total techno type song. Mind Spin by 311. The Pot by Tool, which is so good. That song is so good. And that was after I wasn't really familiar with that song until more recently, because that was the Tool. After I listened to them, I listened to those like first, I think 2 records. And then Limp Bizkit's Creamer was randomly the 5th most listened to song. And they did this interesting thing. I don't know if they do it on Apple, a similar thing where they kind of categorize you, and it says the deep diver. When you love an artist, you dive deep into their catalogs, taking in all the sights and sounds you discover along the way. So pretty cool. And by the way, a lot of people I saw noting that we are in their thing as well, along with Snark Tank and Defining Duke and other shows that are sister shows and friends of the show. So, Chris, what's your list look like? Anything interesting you'd like to share?
It took me a second to find it, but top artists were number 5. I'm going to go 5 to 1. It was Metric, who, if anybody knows Metric, I fucking love them. They had that song in Scott Pilgrim.
Yes.
But they're also fantastic. 4, The Beths, which I actually found recently. Super cool, garage kind of rock, like slight punk. It's pretty cool. 3, Green Day, which is kind of bizarre because I actually don't feel like I've listened to Green Day that much lately. It's definitely probably like from Dookie and Insomniac and those things. Number 2, Deftones.
Nice.
And number 1, Rise Against, as always. And my number 1 song was Vampira by the Devin Townsend Band, as well as Cyclone from oh my God, I can't remember the name. I think it's like the Dub something. It's from Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. I can't remember the name of the band, but it's like, you got me running like a cyclone. You got me running in the cyclone.
Yo, you're triggering something in my brain.
I wish I could. I think it's like the Dub Pistols or something.
Yeah,
that was in the remake.
It was also in the old one as well.
Okay, no, I was wondering if it made it through, because I know 4 songs were not brought through or whatever. It's just funny because the Ernie's Here and Now is like an obsession of mine because of the new version of Tony Hawk, where I'm like, I forgot about this song. I fucking love that song. And that was a nice little peek back into that era, which was cool. And hey, shout out to White Pony. I listen to that record pretty often. Elite, that song Elite, I think it's track 4. When you're ripe, you bleed out of control. I love that song. Oh, the Deftones are great. So it's a nice selection as well.
Yeah, Deftones are wonderful.
Okay. What else here? All right, one more thing from the audience, and then we'll get into the things that we should be talking about here. 45 minutes. I say we keep going. Lewis Templeton wrote in and said, hey, CDC, we need to talk about something I want to name the piss fart. You may have this in America too, but in England, there is this thing that is common in public urinals and in workplace urinals where it is acceptable to be pissing at a urinal and the guy next to you unleashes a huge fart. You have no choice but to laugh along with him and listen to his oops, pushed too hard on that one. How hard are these people pushing the piss? I think it's fine to fart at the urinal. They often go together. People are farting up. I mean, where are you supposed? If you can't fart in the bathroom, where are you supposed to fart? If you're not, I don't understand where you're supposed to go.
So
there should be a room in every. Hey, hold on a second. There should be a room like you know how there's like a breastfeeding room.
You know how terrible that room would be.
But listen to what I'm about to say. It's just a small room, and you walk into it, and it's got a vacuum, like air pulling out of it, like crazy vacuum, and you just go in there and you fart.
But that would be like
basically just pulling it away, and then you get out and you go and you walk away.
But that would be like if you had a room just for garbage. You know, there's a reason why we have a garbage can and not like a garbage. This is the garbage room. It's because the second you designate a space for something so foul, it's destroyed. Like it's not a room that anybody would want to accommodate if they're building a place. It's like, do we want to build the fart room in this hotel? And it's like, do we? Wouldn't we rather have it all just kind of like menially kind of dispersed throughout the normal building as opposed to just having this one focal room where it's just toxic beyond recognition?
Yeah, that's true. Because I was going to ask, like, what's going on in the breastfeeding room 99% of the time? That could also be the fart room.
Oh,
yeah. I mean, it's just a judicious use of space. Sure. The closest I ever got to a garbage room was in my old building. You've been in many. Well, you both have been in Santa Monica. Where you would go into like a small room and the garbage chutes would be there, but it was just a small room with chutes and you would just drop the garbage in.
Right.
But what would annoy me in that room was like some people would just leave their things there if they didn't fit into the chute. And then, I couldn't believe the chicanery.
Or some people would shove like a box in there that was like clearly too big for it. And it's like, break
and then
it down
everything
and
gets
bring
caught.
It downside.
I love that. There were times where the garbage was like stacked up above my floor and I was on the 5th floor, you know. I don't know what the fuck was going on in that place. But I must admit, when I moved out of there, I went into the garbage room into the garage and just threw all my furniture in there and left.
Yeah, that's fair. A lot of people doing that.
Yeah.
I'm not a sacred historian, but I did edit this show for a decent amount of time before I was on it. I feel like this question has been asked before. And when it was asked, here's the important detail. The revelation came out that Chris does not use the urinal at all.
That strikes something in me. Is that true?
Chris is not a urinal user, not a urinal boy. He needs a little privacy.
Is that real? I don't think that's. I mean, that's never been. But yeah, we're gonna have to go back. I don't remember. I've never had that philosophy. I definitely don't fart at the urinal. That's something that's something that I don't.
Where do you fart?
In the stall. If I'm like, I don't. I have pretty good control over all of that. You know, like I'm never like, oh man, I slipped one out. It doesn't really happen.
So I want to be clear. You're not one of those guys claiming that you don't fart.
No,
there are a few people out there that claim that.
That's insane.
Oh, I know. Half the women that I've ever met claim that they didn't fart.
Yeah, they're fucking.
I don't fart. I don't fart, but you do fart. You do fart. And
of course,
you must fart to survive.
I don't know why my mind keeps going to SFO, the San Francisco airport. I have no idea why my mind keeps going there.
I hate that place.
I do too. But I was thinking of the nice terminal where Virgin America would go out of, Alaska Air, and there's like restaurants, a nice concourse, and all of that. Can you fart anywhere in there? In other words, wouldn't farting at the urinal just be a better thing than farting in fucking Hudson News?
Hudson News. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's just more of a. I don't know. I feel like there's only so many bodily functions that can happen at once before it starts to feel a little bit. But before it starts to feel like you're just a fucking glorified animal. I don't know. Just like piss when you need to piss, shit when you need to shit, fart when you need to fart. But the second you start combining them like it's a fucking Voltron, I don't know, man. Like,
let me ask you this: come when you need to come.
Right.
Okay.
But it's like
whenever you need to.
No. Well, I guess not. There's an appropriate time and place.
And cry whenever you want to cry.
But it's like, this is like what we were talking about before, where it's like that, like the prospect of somebody crying, shitting, coming, and like all that at once. Right. It's like, that's not a human being. You know what I mean? That's a fucking creature. That's a creature at that point.
I agree.
I thought you said preacher, and I was like, well,
what denomination are we talking about? I don't know.
That's exactly.
Well, I think we should move on. I think it's time to move on.
Thank you.
I'm going to relieve you from this. Lewis Templeton, thank you for writing it. You sound like one of the obscure people that signed the Declaration of Independence. There was like 56 people, and there's probably like 20 people you would have never heard of. And Lewis Templeton, I think, was probably one of them.
Yes.
Thank you for writing it. Okay. Sacred Symbols is sponsored by BetterHelp Online Therapy, which can, help you right this very instant at betterhelp.com/symbols. So it's the holiday season, and along with that comes a lot of feelings for a great many of us. And some of those feelings aren't necessarily positive, which, needless to say, I totally understand. But when you're feeling down and out, blue, or just a little blah, it's important to both feel those feelings and then endeavor to do something about your situation. And this is where BetterHelp comes into play. See, with BetterHelp, you can speak to a professionally licensed therapist in a way that suits you best. That means no more drives, subway rides, or Ubers to a real-life appointment before doing the entire thing in reverse. Rather, BetterHelp comes to you, whether that means sessions conducted via video, audio, or even over text. In recent decades, and particularly over the last 10 years or so, the stigma around mental health has been widely lifted and erased, and it's been awesome to bear witness to as someone who has found therapy useful in my past, during multiple eras of my life. And so the next logical step, now that that barrier has been lowered, is to work on access. BetterHelp has done this, serving several million clients with customized online therapy that really, truly works. With no in-office visits, costs are lowered for you, the user. That's because no one has to rent space or hire help and so on. My friends, if you're struggling in life, understand that's totally normal. Anyone who tells you they haven't or aren't going through troubles of their own are lying to you. It's that simple. But don't wallow. Take action. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch to a new therapist anytime. It couldn't be simpler. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Learn more and save 10% off your first month of sessions at betterhelp.com/symbols. That's BetterHelp.com/SYMBOLS. That's betterhelp.com/symbols for effective, online, affordable therapy that can help you right now. Take action, my friends. It's up to you to change your reality.
Sacred Symbols is brought to you by Factor. The holiday season is here and well underway, and ready-to-eat meal delivery can lend a helping hand. Factor shops, preps, cooks, and even delivers to your door so you can enjoy chef-crafted, dietitian-approved meals during the holidays, minus the hassle. Plus, 34 meals per week, including Gourmet Plus, Keto, Calorie Smart, Vegan and Veggie, and 36 plus weekly add-ons. You'll have plenty of nutritious, flavorful options to choose from. This time of year for Last Stand Media can be really, really busy. We're recording a bunch of extra shows for the holiday break, and things get pretty jam-packed. Luckily, Factor's fresh, never frozen meals make it easy to fuel up when times get really crazy. And it really is convenient when it only takes 2 minutes to heat up and it's ready to eat. One of the best benefits of Factor is that it's flexible. You can change your order up every week with plans from 4 to 18 meals per week, or you can pause or reschedule your deliveries anytime. I love Factor because it has everything I need for a week of flavorful and nutritious eats. Plus, they have more than just ready-to-eat meals. They have cold-pressed juices, smoothies, energy bites, extra protein, veggie sides, and more. Head to go.factor75.com/sacred60 and use code SACRED60 to get 60% off your first box. That's code SACRED60 at go.factor75.com/sacred60 to get 60% off your first box.
let's get into some of these smaller news items. I wanted to start with HBO's The Last of Us, which begins in January, as we know. We're looking forward. At least, are we looking forward to it? I'm looking forward to just seeing what it is, I guess. I don't know
I'm
if it's gonna be
curious
any
about
good.
it.
Yeah. So over on Push Square, they got together a bunch of, I guess, officially released posters that were launched on social media by HBO Max and HBO, since it'll be on both the HBO Max service, as well as if you have, I guess, terrestrial HBO. And the posters are each dedicated to a different character, some of whom we hadn't seen yet. We've known that the people have played their roles, but we hadn't seen some of these people in action. Dustin, let's start with you. I was curious. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's like maybe a dozen of them. It's kind of cool. It's a little spoilerish in some way. I kind of wish that they didn't do this, but the posters are neat. And I am most attracted to the Nick Offerman as Bill poster.
Yeah.
That Bill character, Micah really loves that whole scene in The Last of Us Part 1. And so when I was playing it, the newest time when it just came to PS5, I was really tuned in to that character intentionally, just to kind of see how I felt about it. And I was totally in. I was like, yeah, this is a great character. But how do you feel about this visual representation? Starts January 15th.
Yeah, I think these posters look cool. It doesn't really move the needle for me at all. Like I said, this is something I'm really looking forward to watching with Holly, and maybe even trying to get like maybe my dad to watch it or something like that, just because it's something that I think that he would maybe be into. And hopefully it seems like all the right level of care is being put in to make this a good adaptation. So overall, I would say I'm excited. These posters look cool, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Jury's still out.
I love the Nick Offerman as Bill one. He just has like the red shotgun shells.
Yeah,
over his
that is nice.
chest. Pretty nice look at things here. Do you have anything you want to add, Chris? Or are you looking forward to the show? Or well, you said you're interested. The visual representation appeal to you. What do you think?
I mean, I think it's entirely fine. I'm really picky when it comes to posters, and like, if I was to get like a poster of something, like, would I put this on my wall? Is kind of like the first thing I think about, and I don't think any of these would really make it. It's ultimately just a person, but it's also like that's not the purpose of these necessarily. Like, if you really want to put these on your wall, I guess you could, but it's really more promotional and just to get people accustomed to how the characters are going to look, and I think it serves that purpose just fine. I don't really have any. I don't think anything particularly jumps out to me as like, ooh, amazing, or ooh, that's terrible. It's just, it's doing its job. They're totally serviceable posters. I think Gabriel Luna is the one that looks the most interesting to me.
Yeah, he plays Tommy.
Yeah, like, I'm curious because he looks like familiar, but I don't know if Gabriel Luna is an actor that I'm familiar with. So
yeah,
that to me is kind of interesting. But yeah, I think it looks like it should,
Let's see. Oh, he was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as Ghost Rider.
He was. That's what it is.
And he was Terminator. He was in Terminator Dark Fate as Rev 9. He was in True Detective.
I never saw True Detective.
Oh, okay. Oh my God, dude, you'd love True Detective. You would love True Detective, dude. You got to check.
I thought about it, and then I heard
they
did. I thought about it, and then they said they did like a second season or something, and then it was terrible. And
yeah, the second season's not as good. Not as good. I didn't even finish it. The first season, they're disconnected though. The first season is
like
just
an anthology.
It's epic.
Oh,
yeah. They're about different crimes. Yeah, you would really like that. So that might be where we know him from. I don't really know any of these other things. So the other things that kind of stuck out to me is in terms of the casting and looking at these posters is I just think they did a really nice job casting. I think it's very true. Anna Torv as Tess, I think she looks great. Merle Dandridge as Marlene looks great. So one that sticks out to me that I forgot, Murray Bartlett is Frank. You don't meet Frank in the game, right? Like, you never meet him.
No, he's like
I remember. I don't want to say anymore.
Yeah.
I want to say anymore. But the game is old. I think everyone's played it, but I'm pretty sure he's not in the game per se. So that's interesting. So that represents something a little different. And of course, we know the same thing with Riley being in it as well, that they're kind of combining Left Behind in there as well. And there's that awesome shot of her at the carousel, which is, of course, a famous scene in The Last of Us's DLC. So shout out to that. Comes to HBO and HBO Max January 15th. We will be covering it on Sacred Symbols Plus. Maybe every week if it's good. I think we can do an episode. I don't think that's that big of a deal. spent 8 weeks covering it and having a little bit of fun. Okay, what's next? Let me see here. Oh, PlayStation Stars has an update, and it's over on PlayStation blog. I got to be honest with you, because people talk a lot about negativity and a lot about kind of being down on things, or whatever. Are we too down on things? I feel like I've been incredibly gracious towards, I guess, PlayStation Stars in some way, and think it's a really cool idea. And I'm really shocked by how negative the tenor is around it. I continue to be really shocked by it. I don't understand what anyone wants out of this. It's just supposed to be a loyalty program. I think that there are way bigger things to be complaining about than that. Yeah. Sorry if you can hear trouble barking in the background, by the way. So I wanted to just throw that out there, and we'll get into that more in a minute. But with PlayStation Stars, the December 2022 update highlights some new campaigns and all the rest. So there's some pretty cool stuff you can check out if you go to the PlayStation blog and look. So as you know, a lot of this surrounds these digital trophies that you get that you can put on your trophy shelf. Just kind of a simple thing. You collect points, you have a score. It's kind of a meta score to trophies. Earning trophies is part of how you earn that score. But if you play certain games coming up, like It Takes Two, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, Destiny 2, Diablo 3, Divinity Original Sin 2, or A Way Out, there are things to earn. And there are some things you can get for just checking in on the app. And this is where I think it gets cool. And I said this on our Discord, which is a part of joining us on Patreon. They have a Wonder Book thing this month. For people that don't remember, Wonder Book was a really obscure PlayStation 3, PlayStation Move initiative that really just died on the vine. They released a few games in it. It's supposed to be like some sort of interactive storytelling initiative. It was a cool idea, but PlayStation Move just wasn't happening. And Wonder Book is, if you played, it says it, if you owned Wonder Book, which it'll know because of your trophies, then you'll get a special digital collectible that's only for you if you played Wonder Book. That's cool. I think that's neat. It's rewarding things that you almost can't even help anymore. I guess you can go play it now and buy it on eBay or something. But I think this is pretty neat. And the reason I wanted to bring that up was because we got a letter from Jamie Milligan, although it represents a lot of people's outlook here. He says, "Hey there, my sweet boys. Less than 2 months in, is PlayStation Stars already another dead in the water program? I have to admit, I was interested in the new potential metagame it had to offer. However, after much experimenting, it has become more lackluster. They haven't set up a trophy app on the actual console, just the phone app still. I have achieved 2 platinums at least since it began, with no reward points to show. The only points I have achieved are from full price PSN game purchases, and what lackluster Ape Escape centric collectibles were available are now all gone. Is this a genuine attempt at a loyalty program, or am I just part of a global test group to see if the effectiveness of an NFT adjacent market with apes instead of chimps is viable?" I don't get it. Me personally, I just don't understand. This to me seems really negative. Am I wrong, Dustin? I mean, I don't. I know that PlayStation Stars isn't something a lot of people are going to interact with. You have to use it on your app, so that they have to fix that, I think, so that you can interact with it on web. You can interact with it certainly on your consoles. But I just see this as this thing they're doing. Like, you should be much more upset about PlayStation Plus, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
What are you upset about this? Like, this is just a free thing. It didn't even exist. You wouldn't even know if it didn't exist. And maybe that is part of the argument as to why it shouldn't exist. But nonetheless, I feel like people argue about it like you have something to lose, and you don't.
Right, exactly. You're not paying for anything. I mean, I guess if you're buying stuff anyway, then you're just passively getting these rewards that are just, for the most part, just meant to be fun. You know, it's not like there's anything really riding on it. I do feel that I think there's clearly plans for more, and this is kind of the early version 1 of it. Obviously, an app on the actual system, I think, is probably the most important thing next. But I am still wondering if there's going to be some kind of new PlayStation Home, and with that integration with these, I think would be super cool. So I think that if you're not into it now, then don't worry about it. Don't think about it. It doesn't affect you, and maybe it will later on. But it's not like you're getting less games from PlayStation because of PlayStation Stars existing or anything. It's just something you can forget about.
Yeah, my opinion on this, because I think what he's speaking to, too, is this idea that you buy certain games, you get these points, you earn these certain trophies, you get these points or whatever. I wouldn't even interact with it like that. You just get points for latent things that don't matter. Like I said, just for checking in, you get 50 points, whatever their currency is. You get things for just earning random trophies and all that. That's how I've been interacting with it. And I guess I think it's a little silly to see something that's a few months old and buy games to earn points through it when there's really nothing for it to show yet. I think they're just trying to show the proof of concept. In other words, I don't think they're even intending for people to interact with it at that level. And I imagine that a lot of people aren't. But anyway, I don't know. Chris, do you have anything you want to add? I just feel like this is cool. I feel like this can turn into something. They need a good loyalty program. So this is a place that they can build off of. And I just have a little bit of hope that there's more to this than meets the eye, specifically because they launched it at all. They don't really launch things and take them away. Mm-hmm. They try not to do that. And when they do it, they get beat up for it. It reminds me a lot of PS3 with Linux and backwards compatibility and all those different things. And they really got beat up for that. So I think they're really wary to do those things. So I think there is a future here, like Dustin said.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely possible. It's as as a service or program or whatever you want to call it. It's not something that necessarily appeals to me in any real, like, I would find myself pretty probably underwhelmed by it, but I'm also not of the audience that's really looking for anything like this. I don't care to have a digital shelf full of digital things. It's just really not my style. But that people are complaining about it when there's so much to complain about, especially with the store and especially with just, like we talked about earlier, like, and we're going to get into, I'm sure at some point in the show, PS Plus, it seems like a weird point of contention. I guess what he's saying here, though, kind of made my ears perk up. The idea that there were Ape Escape centric collectibles that were available, but that are not now.
Yeah, like they're timed. Yeah, I think that the various ones, they're kind of, I think, they're timed based on purchase, but also based on activity. I just think that that's inherent in the whole system. Like if you didn't sign into PlayStation Stars, I think in October, you don't get the PS3 one.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not a big fan of that, but at the same time, again, this is free and it's nonsense and it's all pretty valueless anyway. It's just a cute little thing that they're doing for people who have signed in or are regular players. I don't really see that much to get up in arms about. Like I said, not a big fan of the program, but it's clearly not tailored to people like me anyway.
Yeah, the PlayStation, I gotta say the PlayStation app is pretty good. I go on it to get screenshots. So it's automatically set. I think you can kind of mess with the settings, but when you take screenshots now, it just sends it to the app for the last 2 weeks, and then it just deletes them from your cache.
It's a lot better than it used to be,
right?
Because I remember trying to get footage off of it, and it was like impossible. But it's a lot better now. Yeah, I don't know. I think the app is fine.
Yeah, the app is cool. I just wanted to encourage people. I don't even care if you mess with PlayStation Stars. You have to have the PlayStation app to use it right now. So if you don't have the PlayStation app on your iOS or Android device, I would check it out just because it's I like using the storefront on it. It's useful. Though the UI is snappier than ever, the PlayStation Store is so clean in terms of its searchability now for the first time, although it's not clean with all the shovelware on it, obviously. The PlayStation app is just a really good thing to recommend. That's something that Sony has finally gotten right, I think. Okay, I wanted to ask you guys a little bit about Callisto Protocol. Actually, you know what? I'm going to jump right to this question. I guess we'll use one of the listener inquiries. I didn't attach these for some reason. I'm sorry about that. So we'll only have 5 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas at the end of the show. But Jeremy Craves wrote in and said, I'm sorry. We'll get to you later, Jeremy. Donald John Vaders wrote in and said, dudes, let's get a gut check for the Callisto Protocol. We're standing right on the edge of release day, and this one will be a day one purchase for me, regardless of review score. Super excited to dive into the Dead Space spiritual successor this weekend. Keep doing what you do. Always appreciate you dudes and all the great conversations. Thank you, Donald. I'm sorry. I don't know why I didn't connect those two. I could have gotten another inquiry in later. Alas. I wanted to bring up Callisto Protocol not only because it's right around the corner. In fact, when this publishes, I think the game will be live for you to buy, which is crazy. I'm not going to have any time to play it probably for another week, which sucks. But we also have some things to talk about regarding Callisto Protocol. The first I was curious to get your take on, and Chris, we can go to you first on this, is, and this is according to website Push Square, which got the information from completely insufferable video game forum Resetera. But in the Callisto Protocol's ending, PlayStation has more than 150 names in the credits from first-party support teams. So not any of their major teams, but like the Malaysian group and Visual Arts, which are the guys that used to be run by Mumbauer, who we've had on the show before in the past. I was curious what you thought of that. Sony seems to have actually been contracted presumably to help get this game over the finish line. They're not getting anything in return. They do have a marketing deal with it. It might come from that.
Yeah.
But this is the first inclination that Sony would use its resources in a more overt way to get games over the finish line that aren't even from second party, nonetheless first party. Are you surprised by this?
A little bit. This is definitely as far as I know, I mean, it's not all that uncommon as far as I know that first party resources are used throughout the industry in some smaller capacity than this, but it's definitely a way bigger push than we're used to seeing, and that's definitely worth noting. I don't, because when I first saw this, I was like, what do they stand to gain from that? I actually didn't know about the marketing deal that they had.
Well, yeah, there are Callisto Protocol commercials on TV during football, which is interesting.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's probably definitely something that helps. I'm curious as to whether or not this will be their strategy going forward. Well, because we have obviously Xbox and the strategy of just straight up buying things outright. I wonder if maybe there's kind of a secondary strategy going on at PlayStation where it's like, yeah, you know what, we'll actually fork over our resources to kind of build a rapport so that there's like a little bit more of a natural kind of relationship built from the ground, because that's a lot of people that is no small group of people working on this third party game from PlayStation's first party ecosystem. That's like an unusually high number. So that speaks to me as something that could potentially be a strategy going forward to maybe like court some favor in an era where a lot of developers might be a little bit more financially restricted in what they can and can't do based on acquisitions or what have you. It could be a little bit clever, but that's a lot of people.
Yeah, it is. It's unclear how long they worked on the game. Although you would have to assume that it's substantial work. I mean, we were just talking about the rigorous crediting system in a lot of games where you have to even be at the studio when the game ships to be in the credits. Remember, Rockstar famously didn't credit anyone that wasn't at Rockstar when Red Dead came out, which was Red Dead 2, which was quite controversial. And we talked about the Santa Monica sound composer as well. But for me, I look at this, Dustin, and I wonder, my theory here is it's twofold. Like, we know Sony's first party tools can be used by other studios. But for me, I wonder if there is more of an intention to try to solicit that to get some money churn in, or if Sony signed the deal with this game and was like, we need to help get this thing over the finish line for sure. What do you make of those ideas? In other words, them kind of coming in to help because they feel like they have a stake in it without having to worry about exclusivity or timed exclusivity or anything like that.
So I feel like this is definitely an interesting one. When I was trying to think of the reasons why, do you think that there could be a possibility where they're helping them out because they see a lot of promise in the Callisto Protocol and they want to work on a deal for the next game, like maybe a more extensive marketing deal, maybe some kind of exclusivity or something like that, like a timed exclusivity, of course, something along those lines could be possible. But it's as you said, there could just be a lot of resources available that Sony had, and people with maybe, I don't want to say nothing to work on, but had an opportunity to help them out. And so why not make a little bit of cash when you have people sitting on their hands? Could be a possibility as well.
Yeah, I'm looking. Yeah, I don't see it. I was just looking to see, is there some sort of financial connection with Krafton and Sony? Krafton, of course, is the Korean company that owns PUBG. And remember that Striking Distance was supposed to be a PUBG game. They own Striking Distance. So I was wondering, like, does Sony have some sort of stake in them? But I cannot find any evidence of that. So there's not even that connection either. It could just be as simple as they like the game. It could be as simple as they want to, these guys had nothing to do for a while and we can make money. They're just sitting there. And there's a lot of value, by the way, in the Malaysian studio, especially, not to be too crude with it, but it's like, that's pretty cheap. I mean, I'm sure they're not making very much money, dude. I was shocked. I sent you to the story, actually, reading about From Software, where people at From Software are making like $30,000, $40,000 a year. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
You know, what?
Yeah.
And so I can't even imagine what they're making at the Malaysian studio, which is why I always use that $100,000 per head rule, because I think it just all evens out when you look at it from a global perspective. But yeah, there's all sorts of things about that. I don't know what the reason is, and maybe we'll find out more. Glenn Schofield's been talking a little bit too, so maybe someone can ask him if they get him on a podcast or something. That'll be fun. And I'm not teasing anything. I haven't talked to him. Yeah.
I wanted to bring up something else that I wanted to ask you guys about Callisto Protocol.
Yeah.
Is that, and this will be, well, it may be very relevant or it might be not relevant at all, depending on what things are like tomorrow, but no reviews until release day.
Yeah, I saw that.
I gotta say, I think this sucks. Now, I think that it's their right to choose whether or not they want to have reviews whenever they decide. Sure, that's within their power, but it's a move that feels scummy towards consumers who want to be able to make a choice, which, to be fair, they can wait until launch day and decide. But if I had pre-ordered the game, I would cancel it personally, because I have been burned by pre-ordering and buying games where the reviews were not out yet. So that's concerning to me. I mean, I hope it's a 10 out of 10 and it was no reason to be concerned, but I can't stand that shit.
Yeah, it's funny, man, because this is going to come out and it is going to be what it is, because everyone will know it by this point or have their opportunity to make their own decisions. But it's hard for me to believe that this game's going to be bad. You know, it's very strange. That seems so unlikely to me. I don't know how they could botch something like this with Glenn Schofield. And it's a very limited 10, 12, 14 hour linear game. I'm not saying that that's easy to do per se, but it's like the scope is not unwieldy. You can make that, and we'll see. I do think that is weird. I agree. We don't deal with embargoes. We don't get any free games or do previews or reviews. So for that, we'll all buy the game anyway. I'm gonna happily buy it regardless of the review as well, unless it gets like completely like it's a 4 and it's just a shit show. But I can't imagine that. Yeah. I wanted to also ask you guys though about this other controversy that kind of happened closer to last week's episode, but we never talked about it. But since we're talking about Callisto Protocol now, is how did you feel about this whole kind of faux controversy around the season pass or the battle pass, whatever they're calling it, for the game? People confused how a single player game can have a season pass. I don't think that's very confusing at all. But this idea that they apparently locked content out of the game, made all these death animations for the DLC pack and all of the rest. And then Glenn Schofield himself had to come out and say, listen, we didn't cut anything from the game. We haven't even made this content yet. I really think it showed a little bit of a disconnect between people between a lot of things. But I think, why do people assume that the game has to have everything that they made for it in it before it comes out? This was an argument I remember making when Mass Effect 2, I think, came out, and it had day one DLC. Like, it had a DLC pack right off the bat that you had to buy. Mm-hmm. And people were like, why can't it just be in the game? And my argument was like, well, why does it have to be in the game? Just because they made it? That to me makes no sense. You curate the game you want it to be. And if you have these other ideas for the DLC, or you have other ways to kind of make money, I don't necessarily begrudge you that, especially in an era where fewer and fewer people are willing to pay prime dollar for games. Now, you have to earn that money, of course, and that's up to them. That's not up to the consumer. The consumer is acting rationally, no doubt. But I just find this, there's something weird about the way this game's being treated. Mm-hmm. It gives me those Mass Effect, I think it was Mass Effect 2, those Mass Effect 2 vibes. Do you agree? Do you see that was a weird controversy as well?
Yeah, I can understand the feeling of, I think particularly maybe it was a Mass Effect 2 or maybe it was something else where there was DLC that was on the disc. And I can understand the feeling of, especially in an era where digital was much less of a thing. That's like, I own the disc that has the code on it and I have to pay for a little unlock switch. I can understand that being annoying, but at the same time, I think it depends on what type of content comes out at launch, because with let's say the death animation thing was true, then it gives the feeling that they had the game done. Like, okay, how do we monetize this further? Well, let's go ahead and take a little bit here and a little bit here, a little bit here, and then lock that out, and then give people slightly less, and they won't realize, and then they'll pay for the season pass if they want to get that stuff. Even though that's not the case, I think that that's how it comes off to a lot of people. So I get it. And I also don't get it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a we'll see how it all shakes out. Chris, do you have anything you want to add about that? Do you see it differently?
Well, I do kind of, when you hear the phrase season pass associated with a single player game, it does kind of make your eyes roll a little bit, because it's just like, Jesus Christ, like it's I think it's the association, right? Because battle passes have a really negative association, because their association is obviously with live service games. Like, that is their primary association, especially recently in the modern landscape of the gaming industry. It's very tied to this kind of free to play, and if not free to play, very heavily monetized kind of predatory system that is kind of designed to kind of cut and vivisect the complete game into different portions, and that you have to progress through things to unlock them. You have to buy things to unlock them. It's associated with the death of video game UI as well. Like, I just like, there's a lot of reasons why battle passes are very, very aren't really beloved in multiplayer spaces even. So for it to be present in a game for it to be present at all in a game that is supposed to be a spiritual successor to Dead Space is kind of one of those things where it's like, I remember I read the story and I was like, I immediately groaned a little bit. Obviously I read into it and I was like, okay, it's not the worst thing ever. But I also can't help but feel like it would just be a lot better if this just wasn't a thing. You know, it's more lamenting that this is the industry that we're a part of, that a game like this can only come to light if it's got some, there's always a catch now. And Dead Space didn't have a catch. You know, Dead Space was just amazing from beginning to end. There was no part of it that was compromised. And so even as we get close to this thing that looks really, really great and shines really, really brightly and has all of these positive kind of memories associated with it, that has great production value, it looks fun to play, it looks like it's harkening back to these golden era horror games. The fact that there is that little thing there just reminds you that we're in this period of the industry, and it's just, damn. I don't know. I don't think it's a big deal, but I get it.
Yeah, it's very well. So first of all, vivisection. I mean, that's a nice pull.
I like that word.
Yeah, it's a good one. But also good analysis, because I think there is something like temporal and weird about these things for a lot of people. I think in some way, I want us to be able to rectify this notion, and I guess this is what you're speaking to, and kind of putting together in my head, rectifying this notion that we have $15 Fortnite skins.
Right.
And people are bitching about getting death animations in a game or something like that. I'm like, I don't know, man. I think our math's a little off here. And what's really fucking everything up is a little off. And so that's what I think you're speaking to. And I agree with you on that front. It is a lament. But that is where we are, and I think it sucks, man, because we're just people that listen to the show, just a small group of people. We can't affect too much change, unfortunately, as just us. But I do believe in this notion of continuing to encourage people when they can to buy things and to support things. When you're able to do that, just to send the right kinds of messages, so that hopefully we can affect a sort of future where maybe this doesn't happen. But I just think, unfortunately, we've already long ago crossed the Rubicon, and it's over.
It's over until the next worst thing happens. You know, it's kind of like loot boxes. How we were like, oh man, this is how far we've fallen, and then loot boxes went away, and now it's worse in ways that we couldn't even imagine. And then there's going to be a day where we're going to be like, oh man, I miss the days of micro monetization and battle passes. So much better than what we have. Like, I guarantee you that's coming, and that's sad, but like, I've seen it happen too many times at this point to deny the fact that this is definitely a trend that's going to continue to happen. There's going to be continuously new and exciting ways to make the things that we enjoy more tedious and more compromised. I mean, just
I'm sorry,
not to belabor the point, but like, I mean, look at Modern Warfare 2 2009 and then Modern Warfare 2 2022, and look at the UIs for those games and tell me there hasn't been a just phenomenal degradation in.
They added stats in this week.
Oh, yeah.
See your KD.
Yeah.
Wasn't there at launch. Couldn't handle stats.
It's too bad I can't
now.
breathe. It's too bad I can't breathe in the fucking menus because everything's so goddamn claustrophobic.
You know, Chris, when you initially called it Hulu menus, I thought it was kind of a funny joke, but I didn't really understand what you meant. And then a few nights ago, it was a few weeks ago, I was looking, I was like, this really is fucking Hulu.
No, the guy. No, I'm not even kidding. The guy who designed Hulu's user interface designed the interface for Modern Warfare 2.
Oh my God.
That is real. That's why it looks like
that's not hysterical.
Even, I could be wrong, but I've heard this from multiple sources that I have no reason to doubt. And it's just like it's a streaming service. It's fucked.
Oh, and Chris, I saw you had brought up the idea about doing a video about UI about a month ago, and since then I've seen 2 videos pop up from pretty well. I don't know the YouTubers, but I saw they had lots of views.
Yeah, I shared one of them because one of them was pretty on point. It was like, good. I'm glad. I don't care if I do it. I just want the point to be made. Because it is just noticeably worse, like by a lot. And I hope it gets fixed.
I'll have you know that we just got an email from a printer that we might be working with. He wants to make us political sign, like fake political signs, and he sent us the mock-up Moriarty ray gun 24 political sign, and that would be fucking hysterical.
That would be great.
I think we're gonna maybe make that happen. It just looks so real. There's just no reason to not do that. So we'll see.
I mean, what doesn't look real at this point?
That's true.
Wacky,
dude. That's what I totally forgot to bring that up. You were making me fucking cackle when we came on before we started recording, because you had pointed out, and I still haven't even went back to look, that Kanye West was on Alex Jones's podcast, and you said he was dressed like a home intruder. And I had no idea what you were talking about. And then
you saw
and it is, what is going on?
He's got a Bible. And I noticed in another picture, he's sitting next to a Yoo-hoo, like a chocolate drink. And apparently, and this is like, I was reading this during the show, he said verbatim, quote, "I like Hitler."
Well, okay, here's Alex Jones said, "You're not Hitler. You're not a Nazi." And Kanye said, "Well, I see good things about Hitler also. Every human being has value that they brought to the table, especially Hitler."
Especially Hitler?
The words "especially Hitler" are on my trending bar.
Yeah. Okay, because it's like, okay, you could say, if you're like some sort of bleeding heart, you can be like, all right, even Hitler had value or something like that. But nope. I love the use of especially.
Number 14 on trending right now is the words "especially Hitler."
I don't know what his value would have been.
I saw have all that power.
He also had that line in Flashing Lights. Doesn't he say, "I hate those people more than the Nazis"? Doesn't he say that?
I don't know, man.
That's a line.
I don't know, man. He's losing his mind. It's tragically sad, but it's also just you ever see those videos of it's like I don't know what game this is or what simulator it is, but like it's usually like a simulation of a car driving off the top of a mountain, and it's like careening and it's just crashing, and it's like really realistic physics destruction, and it lasts forever. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's what's happening, and I just can't help but observe and just take it all in. He's with a black mask on Alex Jones's show, hovering over a Bible and a Yoo-hoo.
Dude, it's really, yeah, I don't know what the fuck's going on with this guy and the people he's attached himself to. It's like, all right,
it's fascinating.
It is. I mean, unfortunately, that is true. It is fascinating. But I don't even know why that came up. But dude, I was hysterical when I first saw that picture of him with the because he's wearing this just total face mask, and then he's got like some sort of, as if he's in tourist trophy or something. He's about to ride a motorcycle in a race.
Over a Bible and a Yoo-hoo.
And then he's, I guess, talking about the value of the worst man to ever live. And like I said, I guess you could be some bleeding heart and say every man has value and make that. But
that reminds me of Norm Macdonald's joke where Norm Macdonald said, even Hitler had a dog. A dog somewhere in this timeline was really, really excited whenever Hitler walked through the door.
Yeah, that's funny.
And loved Hitler more than anything. And I
forgot the dog's name. I knew it at one time.
You knew the name of Hitler's dog?
Yeah, I've read I studied a lot about Nazi Germany in college, and after I love reading about it. Yeah, it's
how great would it be if it was like Sonic or something?
It's bothering me. Hitler's dog.
Anyway,
the FBI agent that tracks me at all times is the guy throwing his headphones off. Blondie. I knew I was close in my mind. The dog's name was Blondie. That's why.
Of course, that's so thematically hilarious. Of course, his dog would be named Blondie.
The worst. I just did a Q&A where we do a Q&A every month on Patreon, and someone had asked me like, what are some great World War II books to read, and I had recommended Richard Evans's trilogy on the Third Reich, which is just so good. It is Richard so Evans? Fucked up. Richard Evans. Yeah, not Rich Evans. Unfortunately, not our Rich Evans. No. That would be awesome if it was both the same. But if you guys are interested in the actual topic, those books are
audiobook on the Third Reich by Rich Evans, read by Rich Evans.
By Richard Evans, read by Rich Evans.
Yes, make that happen.
Make it real.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
All right. What else here? Oh, I found this piece in the New York Times. I thought you guys would find this cool. And I know you guys aren't into sports, but for those of you that are out there, what happened?
I'm sorry. I just keep seeing things.
Oh, okay. That's fine. What was it?
Keep going. He says, Kanye just said, we got to stop dissing the Nazis all the time. No. It's too good.
What?
I'm sorry. I'm gonna close Twitter. It's too.
I can't wait to see this shit when we're done. Let's get the show over with. All right. So I wanted to bring up this New York Times article. I'm not a huge New York Times fan, but there's this sports article they wrote called "Role Play Off the Field Helps the Eagles on It," and I just thought you guys would find this interesting. So for those of you out there that watch the NFL, which are many of you, and are fans of the sport like I am, you'll know that the best team in the league, at least by record, are the Eagles at 9-1 right now. And this article claims that Grand Theft Auto 5 has been a central component and Grand Theft Auto Online, a central component to the team's success. And they mean it earnestly. And so they talked to a few of the players, and CJ Gardner-Johnson, who's a safety, said, quote, "I seriously never understood what that was, talking about a John," which I thought was funny, that they wanted him to play this John with them. And he said that, and so they go on and say, he said that the first playing a role-playing version of Grand Theft Auto 5, a popular first-person action adventure game, has helped him and his new Eagles teammates grow closer. More importantly, he can better understand what his teammates are saying on the field and in conversation. Through 11 weeks of the regular season, the Eagles at 9-1 have the best record in the NFL for many reasons. The time they have spent playing a video game has become an unlikely forum for bonding for the ascendant Eagles, and Gardner-Johnson calls it their secret sauce. So I thought that was pretty funny. And they go in later into the article about how some of them are really hardcore gamers outside of the game and even stream on Twitch and have huge followings there, which apparently is becoming a bigger thing with athletes, especially in the NFL. But I just thought that was funny. And so they talk about how on football teams, they're so big that they're compartmentalized. Your offense, defense, special teams, but even then, the receivers, the running backs, offensive line, defensive line, the secondary, all of them are kind of away from each other, studying film, learning their own terminology. They get to know each other very well. But they said that this has been a key to getting everyone together. So they have this like crew of people that roll that don't play with each other on the field by virtue of their positions. And they attribute it to Grand Theft Auto Online. So people should go check out the article if they're interested. Yeah. It is paywalled, but you can always use the Internet Archive like I do to get around it. And finally, two more things I wanted to talk about. Street Fighter 6. There's word that this may be coming out sooner than we think. We had started talking about it in the last few months, rather, and Video Games Chronicle, amongst other sources, note that the game has been rated for release in a couple of territories, including South Korea and Brazil. So this could mean that it's mere months away. And indeed, there's more suggestion that it's close because as of the day we're recording, or actually this happened yesterday, late last night, a Street Fighter 6 technical test closed beta has been announced. It'll be on PlayStation 5, and it will include 8 characters, online matches, crossplay between platforms, and more. So you can go sign up for that now. I guess a lot of assumptions that this game is going to appear at the VGAs. I don't know that we have much more to say about that. However, I did want to end on this subject. The strange game Goodbye Volcano High has reemerged. with a new trailer and a summer 2023 release window. And people might remember that this game was actually seen at a major PlayStation event.
Yeah.
PlayStation 5. In fact, the event that some people consider to be the last event that was ever conducted by PlayStation that hasn't been a state of play, which I think is technically true. Chris, have you seen this game and what do you think about it? Because as I understand, I was reading a little bit about it. It's become quite controversial. And is this, I guess, lightning rod? Do you know anything about this? About how there's a fake game that's based on it? And
there's a fake game that's based on it?
Yes, there's a game that I guess 4chan style people made using this art and have basically actively been trying to sabotage and ruin the game's reputation, which is kind of fucked up. People can go read about it. I think there was a piece on like Vice or something about it that I read. And when you go to the YouTube video with the new trailer, a lot of those people are talking about that. And they're being dicks, being like, I can't believe you guys are already remaking and having a fan version of our game and all this kind of shit. So there's like some weird controversy about it, but I got to be honest, I think this game sounds really cool. And I was curious if it's about basically dinosaurs and a high school. The comet that is going to destroy Earth is coming, and it's about how like their last days on Earth.
Yeah.
You put it in here, Snoot Game.
Snoot Game.
Yeah.
Wow.
I put all that out there, but any thoughts to share?
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing this at that PlayStation event, and I don't know, man. You just see games and you just kind of know they're not for you. And this was kind of one of those where I think the premise is cool. I think that idea of exploring. Oh yeah, that's a cool setup. But I think the visual style kind of puts me off. I'm not really big on. I don't want to go back to high school, quite frankly. Like I don't get a lot of joy out of it. It's why I haven't really delved into Persona or really any of those kind of like slice of life kind of high school games either. It's just I don't really, and I didn't even have like a bad time in high school. I just remember being like, I'm glad that's over. It was just kind of like a really tedious, annoying time, and I don't really have any desire to revisit it as a dinosaur or otherwise. So it didn't stand out to me, but I thought the controversy was just. I knew there was a controversy, but I thought it was just because it was another one of these like visual novel games that obviously has an air of I hate using this word because I think it's lost all meaning, but like the woke kind of like where it's like, oh, it's about it's kids in high school, and there's undoubtedly going to be like representation in there in some form. I remember people kind of complaining about that it was too much of like a Steven Universe style woke kind of game. I remember seeing that initially. I didn't know anything about this Snoot Game thing.
Yeah, apparently this is like completely people. I wish I could find the story. I'll do that maybe when I pitch it over to Dustin. But that it basically was apparently like a very deflating thing for the team because it was a very successful co-opting of it. Oh, you found it's a Kotaku piece. Here it is.
Yeah,
and so people can go check it out. Thank you for this. This is called the anti-fan game PlayStation developer defies 4chan harassment troll project. So you can go check that out if you want. But Dustin, you have anything to add? I just wanted to bring this game up because a lot of people were curious where this one went. This game was talked about like it was close. I think COVID kind of fucked everything up, although it was announced in COVID. So yeah. I don't know. I think it sounds cool. I understand it's supposed to be like hyper woke and all of that, but I don't really give a shit about that. As long as you can do that, and the story can still be good. It's not my preference, but it's not like I'm going to ignore everything that's that way. Because otherwise, I think I would have never played games that I truly adore. I truly adore Gone Home, for instance, which I think people think is a very woke game.
It's a lot of paranoia for no real reason. It's not. You want to make a game. If anybody wants to make a game out of anything, I support it as long as it's fun and it does a good job at whatever it's trying to do. You know,
maybe Kanye West will make a game about being Hitler's friend or something like that.
Whoa. Yeah, here's the thing for me. Furry culture is kind of invading all things. And if you're into that, that's fine. I'm not saying if you're into this game, you're into furries, but you got to see the Venn diagram here. I mean,
so that's where you think it is. So that's what you think it is that furry aesthetic.
Yeah, I can't do it. There's a lot of
what I'm saying. I know you can't do it, and I agree. It's a little off-putting, but what I'm saying is, do you think that is the central point of why people are fixated on it in a negative way?
No, people are probably fixated on it because they feel the need to harass them for putting pro LGBTQ stuff in the game.
Gotcha.
I'm guessing like assholes, right?
Right.
Not that they're not assholes for putting it in. The assholes are harassing them. Just to be clear, the pausing was a bit weird.
I understand. We understand.
But yeah, the furry thing for me is that there's this is a big thing in anime too, where you've got like different like animal human type hybrid looking characters. It's almost like if there was like a slider, right? Like there's a little bit, they get a little bit too human like, and then it starts to feel a bit disturbing to me.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, what about Donald and Goofy or something? The slider is on far enough the other direction for me that's okay. I don't get furry vibes from that. Is
Donald getting fucked by a man in a duck suit? That's the difference, I think, between furry culture and you seem perplexed, Chris. You understand what I'm saying? People are comparing. Are you thinking about it?
I wasn't anticipating those words.
Yeah.
So
no, what I was asking was, were you seriously thinking about, Donald Duck getting fucked by a man in a duck suit?
Right. Yeah.
Right,
and I hope that you are, but I'm disturbed that people saw those innocent things like in the 30s and slowly in our warped minds are like, I'm going to make that into something sexual. And before you knew it, here is this.
Everything is sexual.
I think to me, there's just like there's a certain degree of anthropomorphization that is like tolerable. Like to me, it's not even necessarily like a sexual thing. To me, it's just like, to me, it really is like even BoJack Horseman is something I can't do it. Like, because it's just like a people body with like a vaguely like adjacent animal head on it. And it registers to me as just like incorrect. Like on like a fundamental, like my brain refuses. And this is kind of that way too. It's like, it's not an anthropomorphized triceratops. It's a woman with a triceratops head,
Gotcha.
And it's like,
gotcha.
For me, it's entirely the aesthetic. Like I am really fixated on art design and art style. And that's a really important draw for me. And so if that aspect of your game kind of puts me off, there's a really, really low chance I'm going to check it out. And that's just, I don't know. It also just doesn't seem like my type of thing.
Yeah, it's like I was looking at the video and it's like it is like a visual novel, but and like an adventure game in some way. I think I'm going to check it out when it comes out, though, as long as things pan out the way, where my schedule will allow it, just because I feel like it's one of those games that I'm going to want to have played because I feel like people are going to talk about it. And
yeah, you're probably right.
So you have like some sort of touchstone, but we'll see. I'm sure the people that make the game probably hate me, but I don't give a fuck about any of that. So, yeah, well, I just wanted to give a shout out to Goodbye Volcano High because a lot of people have been talking about it and not positively all the time. And you can go check out Snoot Game and read about that, which is, it's funny and clever to go at something like that, but it's unfortunate to see that done to like just an independent game. Like doing something like that to Call of Duty would be funny. Like to somehow just take the piss out of something. And you couldn't do it to Call of Duty, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. If there was like if somebody made like a first person shooter, it was like Duty Calls.
Right. And we're just getting away with it and needling them and it was bothering them. And
that
would be awesome. But doing it to these, I don't know. It's to your point.
Feels like mean-spirited.
Yeah, exactly. But so many things are on the internet. So
that's true.
All right, let's get into the games we're playing. And Chris, I want to start with you, but we'll go to Peter Pham as we do, because he wrote in and said, "What's up, boys? After listening to some reviews about Evil West being an action-packed linear 10 to 12 hour game from the 360 and PS3 era, I kept on hearing Colin's voice, vote with your wallet. I've grown tired of the hackneyed trend in gaming where most things have open world and saddened that the tight 12-hour campaigns are things of the past. Well, I decided to vote with my wallet and glad I did. I've been having a blast and feel like it respects my time. Hopefully Evil West and similar games do well. We need more AA and AAA shorter games to break up the long and time-consuming games. Keep on keeping on." This game, I think, looks dope, Chris. I'm really eager to hear what you think of it. I heard that the PS5 performance leaves something to be desired. I don't know where you're playing it, and I don't know if that problem has been fixed yet, but I wish I had more time because this does set this. You know what it reminds me of in my mind for some reason is Call of Juarez, where I know it's not the same, but that idea, it's just like you're just playing a shooter. You're just gonna go kill things. I'm digging that idea. So is it any good?
It's there are parts of it that I really like. I think the story is suitably of that generation. I think it's like very like it's very we are badasses and we're gonna let you kind of revel in that a little bit. It's very like we're done when I say we're done. Like it's very very kind of fistful of dollars, kind of like ooh yeah, macho. It's fun. It doesn't. It's weird. I feel like the gameplay isn't obviously. It's nothing groundbreaking. Like this isn't going to blow your mind. This isn't going to be like a revelation. I wouldn't even necessarily say like, hey, go grab this thing right now. You have to play it. I think it's a justifiable purchase, maybe on a sale. I'm playing it on PC specifically because I heard really really negative things about the console versions and their outputs, and there was like some weird thing about 30 FPS at 4K and 60 FPS at 1080p. And I was like, I'll just get it on PC so I can bypass that stuff. And for the most part, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying my time with it. The levels are fun. The combat is chunky. It's over the top. There's a fun kind of flow to everything. I'm still pretty early on. I think I'm about like 4 or 5 hours in. So I'm not necessarily super... I don't know how long it is either, so I might be pretty far in, but
yeah, you might be halfway through.
But it's very linear. It's well, everything's well laid out. It's fun to fight things. It's fun to kill vampires. The story is hokey. There's like a villain, and it's very Saturday morning kind of cartoon played serious. And the cutscenes look really really good. Also, like it's like they did a really good job with like just making everything look really good and getting the vibe of like Old West vampires. And they're also doing this kind of alternate history thing, which I really, really am into. Where it's obviously like steampunk Old West with vampires. And, I think they mentioned, like, I could be wrong. Maybe I interpreted it wrong. Because I was playing it while I was on a Discord call with somebody, but pretty sure the White House comes into play at some point. It's ridiculous. And I'm really into it. I think it's cool. I don't think it's amazing. Like I said, I wouldn't say like go out and get this right now, but I do think it's respecting my time. I do suspect that a lot of people are probably not going to feel this because it plays very dated. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing because it feels kind of nice. It's like refreshing in comparison to a lot of things in some way, because dated doesn't necessarily mean bad, like Mega Man's dated. But it's really solid as well. And I feel like this is kind of the same. I wouldn't say of the same quality necessarily because Mega Man's pretty high esteem, but it's of the same kind of nature where it's like, yeah, this is very old and this does play like a game back then, but it plays like a really good game from back then. Like I don't feel like gypped at all for the purchase. I want to finish it. I want to see it through because there's some really cool lore in this too that if I tried to convey right now, I feel like I would botch most of it, so I'm gonna leave that for when I've put a little bit more time into it. But I like it. I think it's cool. It's a fun little side game while I wait for Callisto. It's definitely one of those. This isn't gonna be anybody's game of the year.
Yeah. At $50, it's gonna be tempting to some people. I'm be interested. I'll probably buy it at that price. It is a focus game, published game, even though Flying Wild Pig is owned by Embracer now.
Flying Wild Pig, you said?
Or Flying Wild Hog, rather. Yeah. But what did I say? Oh, Flying Wild Pig. Oh, close.
Yeah, close. Close. Yeah.
Well, very close. Pig Hog? Pretty close. I can see where my mind was. Went to the wrong word, but thank you for the correction.
Yeah, it would be like, Last of Us by Bad Doggy.
Right. Exactly. That's like something a dad would say, for sure. Yeah. Your mom might say. Yeah, I'll be interested to see if this game can find a path. I want to know. Embracer's pretty open about sharing how their games do in their financials, so we'll get a pretty good look at these kinds of games, though not this game specifically, moving forward, because it's not. I don't think it seems very good right now. Not only from a quality standpoint, but from a sales standpoint. What? I'm of this mind that this is unsustainable and that the IP is very valuable. They'll always own all of these games, but I don't think this fleet of studios that they own can survive as the way it is right now. I don't know. We'll find out soon enough. But yeah, Evil West looks pretty cool. And yeah, it reminds me a lot of those games as well from that era. And I think we need more of those too.
You know what it reminds me a lot of? It reminds me of Wet.
Oh yeah, Bethesda published.
Yeah, it was like it has that. It's not exactly the same, obviously. There's actually many differences, but it has that vibe to it where it's like this like sepia toned kind of Western tinted kind of badass action game. It's really cool. One thing I will say though, I am playing on PC. It runs really well, but I don't know what is going on. But there is film grain that even when I turn it off, I feel like it's just ever present. I don't know if that's the engine or the graphical style, but it is something that's bothering me. Like it is like, oh man, because it looks cool. Like all the creature designs are fun and the combat's cool and the landscapes are really cool and the level design is really interesting from like a visual perspective anyway. But there's like this fuzz and I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's a glitch where it's not registering that I shut it off or what. That might be something to take note of. I would say if it's hard to recommend on console because of all those performance issues. And on PC, I would say maybe like wait a little bit. I think it's a perfectly reasonable sale game, but I suspect there's probably going to be a patch or two. And in that case, yeah, it's fun. It's a cool little game.
Right on. Dustin, let's move on to you. What are you playing?
Same things this week. Modern Warfare 2, still at it. Got 2 wins on Squads Warzone, which is, man, let me tell you, what a feeling winning at the end of a game. They can be very, very intense. One thing I just want to bring to light is that it's not okay when you have a game like this that is such high stakes where you can invest 30 minutes into a match, you know, extremely intense, high level play, only to have your game crash about 20% of the time. 15-20% is usually when we sit down to play, me and the boys. Not every game, but at least 1 to 2 games a night, one of us will crash. And man, what a deflating feeling that is. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter the platform, PC, PlayStation, maybe Xbox is better. None of us play on Xbox for this game, but yeah, just not okay. It's very, very annoying. And then I am playing more Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I don't think I'm going to be able to stick to this game. I don't think I quite get it. The combat in this game is really, I mean, it's weird. I'm not saying it's bad. Just very strange. It's almost has like an MMO-like quality where your character will auto attack and then you set up kind of like your special attacks where you're supposed to hit people from certain like from the side or from behind or whatever, and you have to chain them together. And when you can hit these chains correctly and then do your like ultra attack or whatever at the end, you can do massive damage. And so it's all about setting up those chain attacks, which can be cool. But I don't know if the intrigue is quite there from both combat and gameplay. But it's one of those games that people told me like, oh, you have to, if you don't know within the first 10 hours, then quit. I think I'm about 5 hours in. So I'm willing to give it a little more. But I don't know. I'm thinking, depending on reviews for tomorrow, I might just go right into Callisto Protocol. We'll see. I'm not sure.
How's that resolution?
Oh, man. To be fair, this game makes Pokemon look like 10 out of 10. This looks so much better. It's confusing why Nintendo hasn't reached out to or Game Freak have them collaborate with what is that, Monolith, right? For Xenoblade?
Yep.
Why don't they help them out? Because this game at least runs at a stable frame rate. I will say that it looks good for the Switch. For what it's doing, it is a success. But it's just not it's not up to stuff anymore, and that's clear. I'm guessing there will be a new Switch next year, though, most likely.
All right, as for me, I'm still playing the same 2 games, God of War and Tactics Ogre. I just haven't had very much time. Just so many family things, and still family things to do. But trying to get through these games, I'm about 20 hours into God of War, and I'm about 10 or 12 hours into, maybe more like 15 hours into Tactics Ogre. They're both fun. I'm having a good time playing God of War. God of War, when it lets you play it, is really, really great. And I think the combat is there's just so much sheer satisfaction to be gained
Yeah.
from all of the different things you can do. It's undeniably fun. I wish you could boom, 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 and just keep going instead of sometimes it's just so long-winded. And I gotta say, and I'm just gonna straight up admit it, I don't even know what the fuck's going on half the time in God of War. I don't know if it's probably just me, but I know the main beats and like who the characters are and like what's going on, but there's just so much introduced, so many characters, so much myth. The one cool thing I think the game does is it seems like it calls back a lot more to the Greek games, which I think is awesome. I continue to think that is the coolest feature of these new games is how it's rooted in the old games and how now that Kratos is more open and more of like a person in some way in this game, he starts talking about those days in lots of different ways. And I think that's probably the coolest stuff in the game for me from a storytelling perspective.
It's definitely the strength of it. Like like God of War 2018 would still be a really good game, but it wouldn't really be much of anything without the games that preceded it to allow for the growth that is so special about that game to even take place. Yeah, I don't know how far because 20 hours could mean any.
Yeah, I won't go into what I'm doing because it's so far into the game.
But there is, I think Dustin and I have finished it, but I think there's one section early on that is, or not early on necessarily, but earlier on that is the worst. And I think we all kind of unanimously understand what that is. You're picking fruits and it's just obnoxiously boring.
It's too long.
It's very it's very Sony in some ways, this game. Where it
reminded me of like walking with Deacon's wife along the river.
Yeah, well,
in
Days Gone or in Days Gone. Oh, it's because it's. I just feel like they would have been better served resisting those PlayStation urges and making a really great action game. I mean, that's because I feel like from a gameplay, I actually like some other games feel better. Like I was saying, I think Horizon for me is just like, bah, 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 I just love it. Knocking the things off Monster Hunter-ish kind of thing. But the combat in God of War is so good that it's a damn shame that they have you doing anything other than playing it. Like that to me is what's lost here. And when I really think about it, because apparently it's 40 to 50 hours long when you do everything. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I interrupted. You should finish it.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like if I put in the appropriate amount of time, I probably will have gotten the appropriate amount of gameplay for a normal God of War game. So it kind of all washes out, but it makes you sit through all of the other things that you don't really care about. And the one thing I will say here is that I totally resent them still having that quick travel system. It is absurd. This game is this is such a PlayStation 4 game that it hurts. And it really does. It hurts because it's 2022. And I'm really excited to see Santa Monica untethered from that. And they use it a lot as a crutch for exposition, which I think is sloppy. And because I don't want to do this. I want to just go through the fucking door. I'm walking and walking and walking. And like I said, sometimes I just stay still and just wait for them to stop talking. And then I just walk forward and the door just appears. And I'm like, The one cool thing, though, is that when you're going around some of these open areas, there's a lot of exposition and talking that I think is very well done. That is where you get into Kratos' past and his relationships with different people and his memories. So there is a lot to like about the game. I think the game's great.
Yeah,
I don't see it as the be all end all of games this year or generally speaking. And that's the same way I felt about the original 2018's God of War. I thought it was a really great game that was bested in other ways by other games around it.
Yeah, I don't know when we're gonna do the spoiler cast. I don't think we've ironed out that day.
Yeah, next week probably. I'll try to beat it this weekend.
But I like those exposition bits. I'm like a sucker for Norse mythology though in general, and I think the way by the ending, I will say a lot of the narrative stuff really annoyed me until the end, where it's like, okay, a lot of that was kind of narratively necessary, and they do kind of they do a lot of fun. The way they twist Norse mythology to suit their narrative is really fun and interesting. I think it's really clever. But yeah, I agree generally. I don't think it's game of the year or anything. Yeah,
I think it's a touchstone game. I would recommend rather all people that own a PS5 should play the game. I mean, I just think it's one of those games that come out that you're going to want to be familiar with. And then Tactics Ogre is really great. However, Mo wrote in and said, yo, CDC, Tactics Ogre Reborn, lots of fun. Fuck the level cap. Was having a blast, still am, I guess, but in Chapter 3, the level cap is getting annoying. Colin, are you having the same issue, or is this a stupid complaint? I just can't imagine any other turn-based RPGs having a level cap. Those of us struggling always had the option to level up if needed. Also, the slight annoyance of having finished a 30-minute battle just to get hit with level cap at the experience screen just doesn't release the serotonin I need. Yeah, so this is, as far as I remember, a new addition to this port, which is that the game has I think what's called a world level or something. And depending on where you are in the story, your characters can only level up to a certain place, and you can keep fighting and playing, but you're not going to get any more experience points until you've gotten to another place in the story where that cap goes up. And this is a very ham-fisted way to control people manipulating and breaking the game. But to your point, Mo, part of the fun of these games is breaking them. I mean, part of the fun of Final Fantasy Tactics is making a calculator or making a ninja that has like a ridiculous gun or swords or just the most powerful characters that you can go nuts if you really spend the time and want to do it. Or you can play the game more by the seat of your pants and have like a really challenging experience. And I think that should be up to the player. So I'm not really sure what made them want to do this, because it is annoying. What I find myself doing is you have to level up a certain amount to get into, to fight this battle. But then when you fight that battle, you're capped out, so you don't get any experience from it. And that isn't satisfying. And it must just be a way to control people breaking the game, but I don't know why they felt like they needed to do that. The game strategy, turn-based games are made to be broken. You don't have to do it, but Maddie and I were talking about that on the still unpublished, but will soon be published Trails of Cold Steel spoiler cast that we did, where we were talking about the game can be busted open and totally broken if you know how you're doing. Now, I don't know how to do it, but I was reading things in Trails of Cold Steel about people's setups and all these things they were doing, and they were just obliterating shit. And that's cool. Why stop people from being able to do that? It reminds me a little bit of Final Fantasy Tactics, where the best way to level up is to attack your own characters in the maps, because you get job points and experience for anything you do. So you would just put people in a row and you'd like just have them all attacking each other and then healing each other and then attacking each other, and you just gain all this experience. It's corny as fuck, but that's the way you play the game if you want. So I wanted to throw that out there, that I thought that is lame, and it is a detriment to Tactics Ogre. Otherwise, really, really wonderful game, deeply political, complex, nice throwback to a more 16-bit / 32-bit style, primitive strategy role-playing game from the era of Front Mission and all of the rest. So shout out to Tactics Ogre. Really, really good shit. All right, let's get into the news. And this first piece of news, I think, is very consequential indeed, and we might learn more about it in the coming weeks. Number one, according to website Insider Gaming, which is typically reliable, smash hit Switch exclusive Monster Hunter game Monster Hunter Rise is coming to PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, and it's set to arrive imminently. If this reporting is accurate, the game will arrive on both platforms on January 20th, early in 2023, and its popular Sunbreak DLC, which launched earlier this year, will come to PlayStation platforms this spring. The PlayStation 5 version of the game will apparently run at 60 frames in 4K. At an astounding 11 million copies sold in less than 2 years, Monster Hunter Rise is a bona fide critical and commercial hit for publisher and developer Capcom. Indeed, the previous Monster Hunter game, Monster Hunter World, came to PlayStation 4 in 2018, and it has sold well in excess of 20 million copies. That game, however, never came to Switch, which is why Rise was such a big deal, and why it was peculiar that it would be held back from PlayStation, considering the outrageous success of the last game. This, it seems, is now being rectified. Capcom's Monster Hunter began on PlayStation 2 back in 2004, and there have been 4 other core releases since. 2006's Monster Hunter 2, which came to the West in 2007 on PS2 and later PSP. The Wii-exclusive Monster Hunter Tri, which came to the West in 2010 and was later ported globally to 3DS and Wii U, as well as Japanese PS3s and PSPs. And Monster Hunter 4, the smash hit 3DS game that finally migrated West in 2015 after launching in Japan in 2013. 2018's aforementioned Monster Hunter World is widely credited with helping bring Capcom into its current-day renaissance. One started with the likes of 2017's Resident Evil 7, and one that continues to this day. As a series, Monster Hunter has sold nearly 90 million copies worldwide, including spin-offs and re-releases. Dustin, I got to get your take on this. This seems like big news held close to the vest. Bad news for who? Electronic Arts and Wild Hearts from Omega Force, who thought they were going to have this wide open window on PlayStation, which they no longer will have. I think this is incredibly consequential news, which is why I'm leading with it. And we assume it's true because it comes from a typically reliable source. So where's your head at?
Yeah, this is definitely big news. And I think it will definitely help. I mean, I'm not saying Monster Hunter would, I guess it's possible they could lose ground to Wild Hearts, but having a game out on all platforms will definitely help, especially on PlayStation, Xbox, where they've gained such a huge amount of ground with Monster Hunter World. But this one will be interesting. I'm curious to see how that audience will react to this game, because from my understanding, there are significant gameplay improvements, specifically a lot in terms of mobility. Some changes some people aren't as hot on, I've heard, but from what I've played a little bit of World and a lot of Rise, I can definitely say I like Rise a lot more. But with that being said, Rise is not the sequel to World, and that's obvious in its title, but in particular in the size of its maps and its graphics. It's not the next gen, current gen, whatever Monster Hunter game that a lot of people I think are truly waiting for. They want World 2 or whatever that is. You'll definitely notice, at least when I was playing this game, even at max settings, 4K, 120 FPS, that's how big the power difference is between the Switch and my PC, is that and even on PlayStation you'll be able to play this at native 4K 60, is that you'll still notice things. It's like, this was definitely running on the stinky Switch. That texture or that there just does not quite look up to snuff. But despite that, this game's fantastic. And so if you haven't been able to play it because you either didn't want to play it on Switch or didn't have a PC or just didn't want to play it there, you should absolutely play this game because it is very, very good. I won't be going back to it just because I've had my fill, but I think it's awesome that more people will be able to check it out.
Chris, I'll kick it over to you, but I'll do so by using a letter from Jack Young that brings us on a bit of a tangent. It says, "Hi, CDCs and Dicey D. Before I started playing Horizon Forbidden West, I agreed with the boys' thoughts about the danger of Sony running the series into the ground. I started the game in the last week and my thoughts have changed somewhat. The game rivals Monster Hunter in terms of the depth of its systems and combat. The multiplayer makes total sense to me, but I can now also understand Guerrilla wanting to bring the improved systems and quality of life features to the world and story of Zero Dawn. Have you considered that Sony might actually be making sensible moves to pivot Horizon to its flagship franchise?" I'm curious what you think about this, the idea that maybe Sony is going to position Horizon as a hunting game in the future beyond the trilogy that introduced the game that will no doubt get the third one in, 4 or 5 years. Do you think that there's something to that maybe our worry about Horizon being oversaturated is actually their attempt to combat what EA clearly sees as a huge opportunity as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's possible. I do think, generally speaking, the style of game that Horizon does fulfill a multiplayer niche that really only Monster Hunter is capable right now of providing. And maybe there is a special kind of, business level intelligence of like, yeah, maybe this does work in this format and we're going to see, and like, why shouldn't we? I guess for me, as far as the Horizons, like, I feel like I still feel like there's not really, I don't know if it's got the legs for that yet. And maybe that's just because we haven't seen a multiplayer version of Horizon running, but does Horizon rival the depth of Monster Hunter? I can't imagine that that's true.
No, he's wrong.
That's
just straight up. And I'm not saying that makes Horizon bad, but he's
right. They're just different. It would be like, I don't know. The difference between Horizon and Monster Hunter to me is almost kind of like the difference between Sekiro and Elden Ring, in the sense where it's like, it's not necessarily that one is inherently worse or one's inherently better. Like, those are just preferences. But like, there's no question that Elden Ring is a lot more flexible than Sekiro. Like, Sekiro is a very singular focused game, and Horizon is as well. Like, you have pretty much one set of abilities, and you have most people are going to be playing that game in similar ways.
It's worth, not to interrupt you, but I wanted to reinforce your point. It's true that they give you weapons in that game that I'd never use.
Right. No, yeah, exactly. Because you're going to default to the stuff that works. And even if there are separate weapons, typically speaking, the gameplay style doesn't change that much. I have seen builds in Monster Hunter that confuse the living fuck out of me. And so that on that alone, I feel like they're going to have to do a lot of under the hood work to bring Horizon up to snuff if it wants to compete with Monster Hunter. So maybe it's not a big deal, but I still feel like I'm still worried that they're running the risk of maybe oversaturating that series.
Yeah, I think that's obvious. Regardless of what's good or bad, I think it's too much of a good thing, and I just don't think you want that. But Dustin, can you explain to me a little bit about the differences in combat between the two games? Because when he said that, I guess I included it because I thought that was probably a little off, but I could see the similarities between the games. But I really don't have experience playing it.
Right. I don't want to make it sound like Horizon doesn't have depth, because there definitely is. You have to be strategic in what weapons you use. There's, some whatever they are, robots, dinosaurs, whatever, are weak to like an acid attack or something like that. And you want to try to set up traps or whatever. And a lot of those elements do also apply in the terms of Monster Hunter, but we're talking about 10 or 12 different weapons that the skill ceiling on them is insanely high, to the point where I only really understood one and kind of were able to play a few others, and the amount of depth that was there for each weapon, like the different ways you could customize them, the different attributes of like different sets of weapons, the different types of traps, items, buffs, debuffs. It just, honestly, for a lot of people, the amount of depth in Monster Hunter is going to be too much. It's going to be a negative. I know for some ways that was the case for me until I had someone that could really show me the ropes of how at least some of it worked. That's the thing. I played a lot of Rise. I don't feel like I understand Monster Hunter very much. I had a great time, but I understood just enough to enjoy it and get through it. But I think that if Horizon were to try to do something where you team up and do co-op, they need to lean into the fact that make it more gameplay focused and not as system focused as Monster Hunter would be, because that's where you could really make it. You don't need to read a textbook and watch a 3-hour YouTube video on how a weapon works before you can really hop in and try to do something. That could be really where they could make a compelling case in that genre.
It's surprising that it's done so well, having it be so deep. Yeah, and just to reiterate, Monster Hunter World's Capcom's best-selling game ever. It's just totally unfathomable. I still can't believe that that's true, but it is. And by the way, I don't know, did we talk about it on the show? I don't think we did. Mega Man 11 was recently revealed to be the best-selling Mega Man game ever. So, very unusual. Not thrilled about that, but always happy to see more Mega Man. I think we will, because I think they got the URLs for Mega Man 12, 13, 14, and 15. I think that was like a piece of news in the Mega Man corner of the internet, the very dusty corner. As for me here, I just I don't know. I'm just curious about what their intention is with Horizon. I think that I don't know, man. I don't know that Horizon's even good enough for this level of incessant visiting over and over again. I don't know. We'll find out. I really hope. I'm a huge fan of Forbidden West. I can't wait to play the third game, but I just wish that we can leave things alone and let them breathe. Let us figure out. Let us be excited. Yeah, that's something my brother always brings up. Like, let us be excited for a minute and give it a little bit of time. But there's no time when you have money to make, I guess. Okay, number 2. Some months ago, we discussed PlayStation's upcoming plans to host wide-ranging and organized tournaments natively on its hardware and on PlayStation Network. And now, according to a post from the official PlayStation blog, tournament season has officially begun. Our news, of course, stemmed out of word that beta testing for tournaments on PlayStation 5 had been undertaken in earnest in recent months, and it's time now to see the fruits of that testing. According to the post, quote, the new tournaments experience streamlines competitive play with shorter tournament times, seamless on-console sign-up, easily discoverable tournaments, all new UI, real-time match updates, and more improvements that address common barriers to online competitive play, end quote. And while this doesn't represent the first attempt at doing tournaments within PlayStation, the first one was actually held in 2016, it is the very first time Sony is taking a cohesive, interconnected, and cogent approach, and the results may actually be pretty cool. As such, players can currently sign up to participate in 3 ongoing tourneys on PS5, and considering the games involved, it appears that they have buy-in from some major industry players. The games in question are EA's FIFA 23, Take-Two's NBA 2K23, and Arc System Works fighting game Guilty Gear Strive. And a special tournament is happening now called Winathon, which runs all through December and January. It's described as, quote, a leaderboard competition where you can rack up wins and improve overall ranking while taking part in PlayStation tournaments. Succeed in any Winathon eligible tournament to have that victory count towards your overall ranking on your regional leaderboard. When the results are tallied at the end of January, all players with the most points will win awesome prizes, end quote. These prizes include accessories like DualSense Edge and Pulse 3D headsets, and if you're playing on PS4, you can even win yourself a PlayStation 5. You can learn more at compete.playstation.com. This sounds awesome. I wanted to bring this up because I feel like a lot of podcasts won't talk about this. A lot of places didn't even write about it. This is, I think, Sony paying very close attention to what's actually happening out there. Places and environments that I know nothing about and pay no attention to, but know are vibrant, bursting at the seams. I went out to dinner over Thanksgiving break with my siblings and our significant others. And when I was going into the bathroom, someone recognized me. And I came back to the family and he was really nice. And I came back to the family and was like, oh, they're like, oh, how'd it go? And I was like, oh yeah, someone recognized me. We were talking about it. And I'm like, and they're like, oh, that's so weird. And I'm like, no, it's very unusual for me to be recognized because our audience is somewhat small. I'm like, we were talking about esports and competitive gaming a little bit and people's players, people's audience sizes. And I'm like, some of these people are fucking huge. Like they'd be mobbed. People I don't know anything about. I'm too old and too disconnected. I feel like this, along with the purchase of Evo, and they're really 5 or 6 years focused on trying to get some sort of endemic system going for tournaments. Not only things they run, but things people can run themselves, including signing up on the console itself and not having to use a separate website and all the rest. It's got a lot of quality of life stuff. I just think this is going to be essential to PlayStation's future. It's important to get this stuff out before the games that can take advantage of it the most can use it. And while they can get a bunch of third-party partners to run their own tournaments like they are, you can only imagine what a SOCOM tournament would be, or Killzone or something like that. So, Dustin, let me throw it over to you first. Do you have any interest in this? I suggest everyone go look at the blog post too, because there's some cool screens. It's very organized, very nice, and anyone can sign up for free. So you really have nothing to lose, and you just have to kind of show up or do whatever you have to do to move on or get relegated.
Yeah, I think for fans of these games, this sounds like something that's super compelling. Like you said, what do you have to lose? And it is, I think, somewhat PlayStation also trying to get in on some of like Twitch culture stuff where there are like big Call of Duty or Fortnite tournaments and stuff like that. And what if there was a way that you could be a part of a big tournament and you didn't need to be a big streamer or anything like that you can just jump in right on your console? I would love to see an option, and maybe they had this. I feel like maybe they did on PS4 where people could set up their own tournaments. It would be awesome to have like a last stand tournament in a game or something like that. That'd be awesome to have our fans compete, and maybe we could give out our own prize or something like that. That would be super cool. So this is awesome. I just want to see more games added. These ones are cool, but they're not for me.
Yeah,
so
big ones.
Keep expanding.
Ones. Yeah, definitely. Chris, you have anything you want to add before we move on?
No, I think it's really cool. I think once they expand the amount of games that it can be applicable to, I think this could be a massive win. I'm looking forward to the jumping sushi tournament.
Yeah, it's gonna be fierce.
Yeah.
You can jump the most. For me, the other thing I think about is just this ability for them to maybe make a revenue source, because I play fantasy football, which a lot of people out there do, and for one of my league, my less serious league, which is my family league, we just use Yahoo Sports and we use their free module, and it's just advertising and all that. But with my pay league that I play, that's very serious, we actually use CBS, and we pay a fee every year to use their whole structure in like a more streamlined way. And you can actually bet money, and like they track monies owed and earned and all of that kind of stuff. Like it's all really cool and all above board and legal. especially now that sports betting is legal in the United States, which is what I've been saying about the Sacred Saga and other things, where I'm like, I feel like we're like way ahead of the curve of where this is going. All you have to do is watch sports for one afternoon to see how betting is just people will bet on fucking anything. People will bet on anything, dude. And when they have this tournament system set up where you can maybe do a boutique version of your own tournaments, pay them for the right to do that, have you invite your friends, do that, but also maybe take wagers and all of that. Man, oh man, oh man. This is, I think, the reason they're getting into this. It's obvious. I don't know why people like betting on everything, but they really, really do. And so might as well take advantage of that if you're out there making the bucks. And so I think that the PlayStation tournaments have something to do with that too. But if you're playing on PS4, you can get yourself a PS5. That might be the easiest way for you to find one. I'm hearing renewed clamoring about how PS5s can't be found again. And I saw that on Black Friday in England or in the UK, that Xbox Series X and Switch outsold PS5 as well. So might be back to those lean times. I don't know. All right, number 3. PlayStation Plus's new so-called free games have been revealed, this time for the month of December. As PlayStation Plus has recently been split into a 3-tiered system, these games are for everyone with PS Plus, regardless of level, the so-called Essential tier, and they will become available around December 5th. The biggest game of the bunch is no doubt Electronic Arts' and BioWare's Mass Effect Legendary Edition, which came to PlayStation 4 in 2021. The Legendary Edition comes packing all 3 core Mass Effect games as well as their DLC in one neat package. You may recall that all 3 Mass Effect games came to PlayStation 3, though they were released way out of order. Though the original Mass Effect came to Xbox 360 in 2007 and PC the following year, it didn't come to PlayStation 3 until late 2012. By that point, Mass Effect 2, which came to Xbox 360 and PC in 2010, and PS3 in 2011, and Mass Effect 3, which launched everywhere in early 2012, were already there. In other words, on PS4 is where you can most easily and completely play, and that collection is free for PS Plus subs. The second game of the month is also a big one, and unlike Mass Effect, it's available on both PS4 and PS5. Biomutant, released on PS4 in 2021 and on PS5 earlier this year, is also there and comes by way of developer Experiment 101 and Embracer Group-owned publisher THQ Nordic. It's a third-person action RPG about some sort of cat-like looking creature. And finally, a game called Divine Knockout Founders Edition will also be free to download on PS Plus for subscribers for both PS4 and PS5. This is a notable game because it's a brand new release, launching on PS Plus out of the gate. It's a so-called third-person platform fighter that allows for up to 6 players and comes from Realm Royale developer High Res. These games will be removed from PS Plus sometime in early January, so be sure to add them to your download list now. Chris, anything speak to you this month?
Oh man, nothing.
No? Nothing for you?
I've always been curious about Biomutant, but I don't know, there's something about it where I feel like there's a lot about that game that calls to me, because I think we were just talking earlier about what degree of anthropomorphization is okay, and I feel like this is okay. That's clearly more cat than man.
Yeah, weird. Well, I don't know. I looked at it. I was like, I don't know what you are.
It's cute. Something. It reminds me. Yep. You know what it reminds me of? This is a really deep, a really weird reference to make, but it reminds me a little bit of like an open world Blinks the Time Sweeper. Just like a little cat-like thing running around. And I think there's something about it that's cute and cool. And I do want to play it, but I have a feeling that I'm not going to be able to like it unless I can really spend a dedicated chunk of time with it. I don't feel like it's a game that I could easily kind of meander in and out of. It's not pick up and play. It's not like Hades or something where it's like, oh, I'll pick up and play 30 minutes. I'll do a run and then I'm out and then I can play something else and I won't get distracted. It feels like a game I would have to commit to. And I don't know. I'm not really all that ready. All I'm noticing about this month is no news on any more retro stuff.
Chris, I got something for you here.
Oh, what?
In the PlayStation blog, they said, the PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium game catalog lineup for December will be announced later this month.
Yeah, they
said that on November 30th.
Yeah. Well, they always do it 2 weeks apart, so they're never going to say them at the same time, which is actually something I was going to say where it's a little annoying, but I understand why they do that because they want 2 marketing pops instead of 1, which makes sense, but it is annoying not to know, because what they did in that PlayStation blog post was tell you the games that are now available on Extra and Premium, but that were announced last month, and so on and so forth.
It's all staggered and weird. As of right now, like Biomutant is probably the only thing that catches my attention, and that's just, again, it's a very striking title to me. I don't know what it is. It's been in the back of my mind for a long time, and I'm gonna have to hunker down and just play it eventually. But
I played it very briefly on PS4, and then I just never went back to it. It was fine. I just lost focus on it. I don't know. Maybe one day. So I already own it, so that's not for me. But I don't think I ever bought the Mass Effect collection. So I definitely am going to add that to my download list. Yeah, I never played it. I mean, I played the originals, but
yeah. I mean, that's a great get. If you haven't, I bought it ages ago, so it didn't trigger anything for me.
Yeah,
it's definitely worth it if you haven't bought it.
I think when they announce the new Mass Effect game and they make also clear where Andromeda stands, like, is Andromeda are they going to pretend like Andromeda never happened, or?
Of course.
Because then I want to kind of go back to the beginning and play everything that is relevant in the lead up to the new Mass Effect game. And yeah, I'm hoping. I played Andromeda a little bit and it wasn't, because I really did try to be open-minded. I'm like, oh man,
it's bad. It's just, it's not good.
Yeah, it's really not. Okay, Dustin, do you have any thoughts here on the PS Plus games, including a new one? The Divine Knockout game is a new release everywhere. I don't think it's even out on PC, or it's out imminently on PC as well. So, so that's a nice little grab, I guess. And if you're into that sort of thing, that's not for me, obviously.
Yeah, I watched the trailer for it. It's not something that I'm particularly interested in. It kind of looks like a over the shoulder third person, like Smash Brothers type game where you're trying to knock players out of the arena, but I'm not really into this chibi art style. But still, I will say I'm glad to see them do a day one release on PS Plus. It feels like they haven't done that in a long time, so that's a cool thing to do. But really, the cream of the crop here is Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Here's the thing. I've always wanted to go back because I've only played Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3 one time. And so I want to go back and do it again, but I kind of feel like I have my canon playthrough that has kind of been cemented in my mind, and I just don't know if it will be the same if I go back. So maybe I will, especially now that it's going to be free. I can just check it out whenever it suits me. But if you haven't played these games, damn, they're really, really, really phenomenal.
They're really wonderful title. You really do owe it to yourself to play them. Like Mass Effect 2 is probably that might be a top fiver for me. Like I really love Mass Effect 2. It is such a great. I replayed that entire game because I got to the end and a character that I didn't want to die died, and I was like, no, I'm not having this.
Oh yeah, the suicide run at the end. I love that all the things you do. It's not a spoiler. Also, the game's old as hell now, but
it's
everything you do in the game lines up so that this final mission happens with a certain permutation of people, and you can make it so that you get them all. And that ending, how that ending is affected carries on to the next one, which is it's really cool. It's a really cool that is the type of game that could really only happen in that period of time when a lot of developers were experimenting with this really interesting kind of they were just in a really interesting space of choose your own kind of adventure, like pick a path. That was like a really wide obsession at the time of like multiple endings, and that obviously died down a little bit as the generations went on. But what a unique experience that they're really, and the first one is wonderful now. I played because that was the reason I got the collection in the first place, because Mass Effect 1 was a game that I never really played. Like I played a little bit of it, and I remember on 360 it ran at like 10 frames a second, and I just couldn't do it. I was like, this is horrific. It was definitely more KOTOR than Mass Effect at that time. And this new revamped Mass Effect 1, I was like, all right, I should play this since I played 2 and 3. Plays beautifully. So that alone is great reason.
And here's the thing too, to keep in mind. A lot of people, first game one, you might want to romance Ashley. It's a fine choice, but a little racist at the end of the day. Little human elitist.
Right.
You got to dump her ass in Mass Effect 2. Shout out to Miranda.
I forgot about that. I totally forgot that she ended up being a racist.
Yeah, a little racist. And that's, Miranda, she'll take care of you.
Can't believe Ashley showed up on Alex Jones's podcast.
I know, looking like a domestic terrorist.
Yeah.
I wanted to go to a question from the audience from Joe Mayo. He wrote into us on Patreon. He said, "Hey, Sacred Crew. The time has come and I downgraded my PS Plus subscription back to Essential from Premium before it automatically renewed. Maybe one day I'll go back to Extra depending on what's offered, but unless something amazing happens, I can't say I'll ever go back to Premium. What is Sony's game plan? I'm starting to think they want Premium to fail so that they can use it as proof that people don't want access to older titles. Do I need to take off the tinfoil hat? I would love to hear your thoughts." No, I totally disagree. I don't think they want this thing to fail. That's why I think they realize that it's probably essential that it works, because they have at the very least, I think Sony realizes that they need to give the PlayStation audience an opportunity to get some sort of Game Pass situation going where they don't go and get Game Pass. Like at the very least, you just want it to shrug off a little bit of competition, but there seems to be no organization or focus around it at all. I think the games from Essential are always pretty decent. Like there's rarely a month where I think, wow, this is a fucking shit month for everyone. Usually there's something for someone, and there's usually a decently sized game that will be well respected by a vertical of people. And
of course,
And so I think that that's good. And PlayStation Plus itself has come a long way since 2010, where everyone hated it. It's totally different now. But these two new tiers, Chris, I wonder if you agree. I just feel like they have to, I think they would benefit from maybe talking a little bit more about what their intention is. Maybe even acknowledging that things are a little soft right now. And this is kind of what we're trying to do. And these are maybe the things that are holding us up. And this is what we need to figure out. I know it's very on Sony to do those kinds of things. And so I don't expect that. But it could go a long way to describing things. I just know for sure that Sony doesn't want this to fail, because the subscription model thing is going to happen. It's just a matter of how it's embraced and what goes on it. And so they want people on it. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think there's like some grand conspiracy to make this thing fail just so they can be like, oh, look, we were right. There's no money in that. There's no money in proving yourself. Like, why would you do that? That's a bit too tinfoil. But I do wonder what the hell's going on, because this is the premium. They're advertising a premium tier that is, I feel like it's probably one of the worst premium tiers in anything. Like it doesn't really give you much of anything, and it's not updated enough in a sensible way. Obviously, we talked a couple episodes ago about their most recent update to the Plus tier, where they had all of those retro PS2 Ratchet and Clank games, all of which were streamed on PS3. That was what happened, right?
Yeah, That's right.
And it's just like, even when there is more, it's always got some weird catch to it. They're not handling it well. And if they're trying to make a case for them being a competitor to this other service that is, quite frankly, just objectively just jam-packed with value, at the very least, they have to make sure that premium tier, the people who are paying the most, are getting something out of it that is meaningful. And right now, that's just not the case. I still think normal PlayStation Plus is totally fine and totally serviceable, and there's nothing wrong with it. But if you're going to advertise a higher tier, and then you're not really going to offer anybody anything in exchange for that, that just kind of comes across as bizarre. It would be like if we had on Sacred Symbols or on Last Stand Media, if we had like a $100 tier and then it didn't do anything. It's like, why would anybody do that? Obviously, that's like an extreme example because the money difference is not that high, but they're not really doing anything to earn anybody's favor for this premium tier. And that's what's most confusing to me, because they've had a number of months to kind of iron this stuff out already. And if they're slow to react to this, I feel like this is the easiest thing to do. You know what I mean? That's also another part of it. We know their focus is very split right now, because they're doing all these things. There's like VR vertical, live service vertical, behind the scenes. They're doing all of this extra stuff. Even within the PlayStation Network, they got like PlayStation Stars. Here's this other random thing, right? We know that they're doing a lot, but surely finding games that already exist, by the way, that you own the rights to, and just porting them over to your network can't be that difficult. You already ported these over to PlayStation 3 once over a decade ago. Surely you can do it again. And surely you can do it quicker than this. I don't know what the problem is. It's confusing.
Yeah, it is. What do you want to add to this, Dustin?
Yeah, it's bullshit completely. This is, and I'm glad to hear Joe took the initiative to go and lower his plan as we suggested on the show recently until they show that the premium tier is something that's actually worth paying for. I was trying to see, talking about the non-streamed games. So that is PS1, PSP, PS2. No new PS2 games. They've just kind of shat out the ones that they put on PS4.
In years, yeah.
And some of them don't even work right. Ape Escape 2, prime example, doesn't work right on PlayStation 5. So that's great. They've added some PSP games. I don't want to diss these games, but they're not of note from the PSP library. We'll put it that way. Like Kingdom of Paradise, Loco Roco, Midnight Carnival, Echo Chrome, stuff like that. I'm not saying these are bad, but it's not really what people are looking for. In the PS1 category, I'm trying to remember what games they've actually have been added. I think Siphon Filter 2 was one of them. Worms Armageddon, maybe, I think was one that wasn't there at launch. But this is the point. That list has barely expanded. Barely. So what's going on? What are they doing other than just basically taking money from people at this point? Not fulfilling the promise of the classic library. So I'm going to say it once again. If you are not happy with the premium tier, even if you've already paid for it, go to your account, switch it down to extra or essential. Send a message because this shit sucks. And it's very disappointing for me and many other fans of retro PlayStation content that this was presented before us. And now this is what we've ended up with. It totally sucks.
Yeah, I'm looking just through the different deals. Like, there's no doubt that at the extra, I think the extra tier is pretty good.
Very good.
Yeah, there's a lot of good shit there. I don't have that either. I mean, I don't want it. I just, I think that the maximum value is there. For me, I'm so glad I didn't subscribe out of pocket because a lot of people did. And I should say not out of pocket for money. I mean, like being out of the pocket. I just feel like a lot of people were getting ahead of themselves and not really seeing it for what it might be. And this has been an abject, I don't want to say an abject failure, but definitely their inability to get this beyond the extra tier to the premium tier and really sell that, I think is concerning. Maybe the entire idea the whole time was to have the extra tier be the most alluring tier. Maybe that's what they want to kind of drive people to that tier. But I don't know. The classic games stuff is strange. Like I wonder if they have something to say about that, but it's not like anyone asked them, or if they do, they don't answer. So we'll keep an eye out on PlayStation Plus, of course. And I think in the coming weeks, we might not even be able to do a live show for it, but we'll have the new PlayStation blog post for the extra and premium games that are going to be added right in the coming months. Okay, let's go on to number 4. We already know that we're getting a Twisted Metal TV show, whether we wanted one or not. In fact, we have a ton of details about it already and have been talking about it in some form or another on this show since 2019. It will premiere in 2023 on NBC-owned streaming service Peacock. It's somehow based on Twisted Metal lore, and it's one of a number of TV and movie projects from Sony imprint PlayStation Productions, the sister of PlayStation Studios, responsible for extracting cross-media potential, which it already has done with the surprise hit Uncharted film earlier this year, and will attempt to continue to do with the likes of the Horizon TV show and Ghost of Tsushima movie. As for this Twisted Metal TV show, website IGN got a scoop that details the show more deeply for the first time, an exclusive that seems to have gone largely unreported. What's perhaps most interesting here, though, is what the show could have been and originally was, but then wasn't and isn't, a battle royale. According to producer Carter Swan, one of the players responsible for fusing the game's side of PlayStation with movies, TV, and the like said, quote, "We all thought of having a battle royale in season 1. It's fun, but it's hard to get to know the characters, and it's hard to get to know the world story if you're bound to one place. Thunderdome's the third movie in the Mad Max franchise after they thoroughly established what's happening, so you want to take the time to build this world, build these characters," end quote. The Thunderdome reference is key since it represented an exploration of an already established world, which is what they're trying to do with this version of Twisted Metal. Instead, he cites a very specific reference point, one that makes a lot of sense considering the show's creators. Quote, "They're able to kind of look at these violent, ridiculous things and make them fun. Zombieland is a good barometer if you look at what happens in that movie as to what we could do. Their whole thing is you can have fun with fun in the apocalypse," end quote. Zombieland is the 2009 horror comedy written by Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, who are running Twisted Metal's TV foray. The two would, of course, go on to lead Deadpool's films for Marvel, a post they still hold leading up to 2024's Deadpool 3. And they even did a G.I. Joe movie in the form of 2013's Retaliation. Twisted Metal, of course, is one of PlayStation's most storied franchises, one that go all the way back to the first console's Western launch. 4 Twisted Metal games span PS1's life cycle from 1995 to 1999, and the 2001 PlayStation 2 game Twisted Metal Black is widely considered the best game in the franchise. It was last seen on PS3 in the form of 2012's reimagining, and it's long been rumored that a Twisted Metal reboot is underway for PlayStation 5, first at Lucid, the team behind Destruction All-Stars, and more recently with Firesprite, the newly purchased Sony studio that apparently took the project over. I don't know. Chris, I'm having a hard time getting excited about this show. I don't know. I'm really eager to see how it all plays. I know that like they might have something here. I'm trying not to be skeptical because my skepticism of Uncharted, I think, was widely or largely that was just a misjudgment on my part. So, excuse me. So what do you think about what we've learned here about the Twisted Metal show's potential and then what it's going to end up being, which is obviously something much more frenetic and comedic?
Yeah, I mean, I think even when we talked about this initially, I kind of always was of the mind of Twisted Metal, I feel like has the most potential just because it is so... It's not The Last of Us. It's not this series that is held in particularly high esteem from a lore perspective. You know, people aren't going to be like, that's not true to the core of Sweet Tooth. You know, like I don't think anybody's going to be really complaining. I feel like it's a loose enough concept that they could just have enough. They could have a lot of fun with it. And also, I just feel like, generally speaking, the audience is more willing to accept that with Twisted Metal than they would be for something like The Last of Us or even Uncharted for that matter. And, you know, also because I feel like audience expectations are probably not all that high. I mean, like, I feel like Twisted Metal is such a storied franchise, but it's been so dormant that I feel like people would just be happy to see it back in some way. And with the Deadpool writers, you know, I'll admit, like, I thought the Deadpool movies were fine. Like, I didn't love them as much as everybody else did. But they were definitely entirely serviceable and enjoyable to watch. So I don't know. I think I stand by that. I feel like this has the most potential of any of the other TV properties that they're doing, solely because the source material isn't that serious. And I feel like the source material is flexible. Like you can't really do a different take on Ghost of Tsushima. You know, you can't really do that much of a different take on The Last of Us either. Like The Last of Us is, they're going to do their own thing with The Last of Us for sure. And it's obviously an HBO thing. So there's going to be a lot of quality there, but they're really just kind of fleshing out the tone and the world that existed in the first game. Guys, I really need you to look up Axel from Twisted Metal and tell me that a live action adaptation of that ridiculous character wouldn't be hysterical.
Oh yeah, I remember this character.
Yeah.
That alone, like, if Axel is in the show, I'm absolutely excited because I cannot. The thought of the Deadpool writers working with that world, because that's a ridiculous world. Like, Twisted Metal is absurd. It's insane. There's a clown who is a murderer who drives an ice cream truck, and it's serious. Like, they take it seriously.
Whoever came up with it is absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's a lunatic mind.
Yeah, so some big names in it. Anthony Mackie, Will Arnett's doing the voice of Sweet Tooth.
Will Arnett.
Samoa Joe is playing.
Is Anthony Mackie in it?
Yeah.
That's so funny. I saw him at a cigar lounge like 3 weeks ago or something.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, he plays John Doe or whatever, like the protagonist.
I should have asked him. We could have got a Secret Symbol scoop.
Yeah, we could have gotten a scoop.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about it.
Cigar bar. All good, my friend. All right.
Yeah.
Let's end with number 5. Did I go to you, Dustin?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
no.
I didn't go to you, did I? I'm sorry. I totally skipped you.
That's okay. I was trying to figure out if what I had to say was worthwhile, even. But I think I'm with Chris in that I think this does have potential. Zombieland is a good movie. At least I remember it being a good movie when I saw it however many years ago. 2009. I was in 9th grade.
That's their specialty, by the way. They make movies that are good until you see them again.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Later.
Well,
I don't know. I'll be real. I haven't watched Zombieland for that reason, but I saw Deadpool 1 and 2 again recently, and I was like, this doesn't land as. But obviously, because they're comedies, so it's hard for comedies to land in the same way after the first time you see them. But it's gonna be. I think it's gonna be good. Yeah.
I'll leave it with this, and just that the one thing I was thinking is that I think that things that we thought weren't possible are becoming possible and working. Specifically thinking about things like the Suicide Squad. There's a man that's a shark in that movie, to my understanding. I've not seen it, but I've heard it's very good.
Oh,
I probably should watch that one.
Oh, the James Gunn Suicide Squad is very good.
I need to watch that because I'm interested in this shark man, whoever he is. I don't know what he's about.
Yeah, Sylvester Stallone plays him.
Oh, perfect. So just like when you hear about that on paper, you're like, well, that won't work. That'll be dumb. Or how could this be interesting? But I don't know. I love the idea now, like thinking from that perspective of like Sweet Tooth and Axel in this absolutely absurd balls to the wall Suicide Squad meets Thunderdome. What's that? Mad Max type situation. That could be super cool. So I wouldn't say I'm excited. I think it's too early to be excited, but I'm certainly interested.
Fair enough. I think you guys make a compelling case. We'll have to keep an eye out. That comes to Peacock in 2023. I don't know if I'm gonna.
Oh, Peacock.
Bother. Yeah, exactly. It's like they're spreading everything around. They're doing something with Netflix. They're doing something which is smart. Kind of getting your eggs in all these different baskets.
Is it like $5 or something? It's like
I think you can do an
cheap.
ad. I think Apple. No. I think Apple TV is the cheapest one. That one I think is like $5 a month or something. But that's Apple's advantage. This is just all passive income, you know. They don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
It's too many. There's too many of these goddamn things.
$5
totally. That's why I just refuse to subscribe. And it's the same reason why I have no interest in PlayStation Plus or a game like a Game Pass type PlayStation Plus, because I don't even need access to all these games. The last thing I need is to be overwhelmed. More overwhelmed than I already am. Choice? Oh God. Bring back the NES. We had 700 games to choose from. That was it. Okay. Number 5 is the last one. Let's do it. Now, yes, we're all tired of hearing the Microsoft Activision story, and we all pray for a sweet release soon. In the meantime, however, there is more news to share. It comes from Newswire Reuters, which reports something important, something that may finally bring this saga to a close. Microsoft is prepared to offer rival Sony a 10-year extension to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation platforms. As Sony already has a deal with Activision for Call of Duty through 2024, and because Microsoft would be on the hook for that deal, this presumably extends that deal through 2034, which is an unfathomable time away, when we may be even in the late stages of PlayStation 6, if not on the PlayStation 7, or even a console-less future entirely, who knows. The news comes on the back of headwinds for Microsoft. It needs global regulators to sign off on this acquisition, the biggest in the history of the gaming industry, but Sony has vociferously fought back around the world, as have other competitors like Google, and their lobbying has been successful, particularly in Europe and the United States. In Europe, the European Commission has antitrust concerns, as do British regulators. Meanwhile, here in the United States, website Politico reports that the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, intends on suing over the deal as is, potentially killing it. We discussed this a little last week. Remember that if this deal doesn't go through for any reason, Microsoft owes Activision a staggering $3 billion in the form of a kill fee, and the deal itself is worth nearly $69 billion if and when it goes through. As Sony established through its representatives in Britain, as we discussed at great length on the last episode of this show, Call of Duty is an unrivaled industry titan that Sony fears losing. Such a loss, it contends, could swing things permanently away from its market leader, away from it as a market leader, a position it argues it won not through brute force, but through quality offerings over many years, something it contends Microsoft simply hasn't matched. Call of Duty, first launched in 2003, has been on an annualized schedule since 2005, and each year it is regularly the best-selling console game in the world. The series is approaching a staggering 500 million units sold, and is responsible for untold billions of dollars in revenue. For Activision's part, they intend to fight in court if necessary to get the deal through. Lulu Cheng Meservey, Activision's EVP of Corporate Affairs, tweeted in part, quote, that any suggestion that the transaction could have anti-competitive effects is absurd, end quote, and that they're, quote, committed to continuing to work cooperatively, with regulators around the globe to allow the transaction to proceed, but won't hesitate to fight to defend the transaction if that's needed, end quote. I don't have anything more to say about this. I just feel like we can't ignore it for the sake of being tired of it. It's relevant. But this could be the end. Chris, you weren't here last week. I wonder if you have anything you want to add to the story or how this strikes you. This would bring, if true, and Reuters is a renowned newswire, so it's obviously true. this would allow Call of Duty to not be taken off of PlayStation until 2035 at the earliest, which seems almost absurd. I don't know how much more you could possibly expect than that. There's not going to be a perpetual deal. No one would sign a deal like that. That's just insane. So I think that's about as good as it's going to get. And I said on last week's show that the deal has no prayer of going through as is now. I totally believe that. This is the concession that will be required to make the deal go through. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I am of the mind where it is just annoying because to me, I just, how I feel about it is, I mean, I feel a number of ways about it. I feel it's weird for Sony to be fighting this purely because they should have the business understanding that Microsoft can't make Call of Duty without putting it on PlayStation. They have to, in some way, they have to understand that that's true, right? Also, I feel like they place too much importance on Call of Duty. Like, I really don't think I feel like Call of Duty allows PlayStation to get complacent, and that's something that I don't appreciate. And it's also something like, let's say this does end up killing the deal, right? Let's say that this doesn't allow the Activision Blizzard deal to go through. Now, Activision's not going to feel too happy about being cheated out of like $69 billion or whatever. And also, Activision has made it clear that they're willing to fight for this, which means that to me telegraphs that they're looking to be sold, or they're looking to be bought more accurately. And if Microsoft doesn't get them, who is left?
Yeah, I don't know. Sony.
Who is left? Tencent's left.
Yeah,
and that fucking scares me way more than anything.
I just can't imagine. I just can't imagine regulators letting that happen.
What, Tencent getting it? Why not? They don't.
Because I don't know, they won't let Huawei do business in the United States and all these Chinese firms. It just seems like if they have a problem with Microsoft owning them, they would definitely have a problem.
Yeah, but they have a problem with Microsoft owning them specifically because of the stem to stern console manufacture to publishing to production.
Yeah, that's true.
That's right. And Tencent doesn't have that problem. In fact, Tencent's probably so they own a bunch of studios and they have stakes in studios. What's the difference? And so to me, it's like all this. The reason why PlayStation comes across really unsympathetic here in this entire conversation to me is because not only just because there's like a little bit of hypocrisy in the way that they also delve in exclusive deals, and that's just how the industry operates, but because and by the way, this is like not an ideal situation. I'm looking at just like the ideal play, the ideal play given the current circumstances. The more they fuck around with this and the less likely they make it possible for this deal to go through, the more likely Activision falls into Tencent's hands. And that fucking scares me. And I would simply rather, if something is going to be bought and sold, it is owned by an American company or anywhere outside of Tencent. That is my personal bias. And so it is frustrating to kind of to constantly hear about this stuff. And to have this thing in the news every fucking day, it feels like, when we all know the deal is at some point going to go through. And I don't like Sony's importance on perceived importance of Call of Duty.
The redactions.
I want them to make a shooter.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, that was it. That was.
I was going to say the redactions you missed because you weren't on the show last week. The redactions, I have the document here. They're like they're hysterical. Like it's like a CIA document. But the things we were talking about with this last week, they were redacting all of the things that would give us more information. Obviously, about like they would be like Call of Duty players account for X% redacted of PSN users. It's like, oh my god, what is the number? What is the number? Just tell me what the number is, and then we're trying to figure out how big the redaction is. And it's like, is it a 20? Is it a 10?
There was something, though, that gave away even just from the language about, they were saying engagement in Call of Duty on PlayStation platform is this many times the combined output of PlayStation first party. So even if that's just 2 times, that's crazy. And they redacted the number. So I think after reading that document last week, I don't know if I have a firm stance on either way, but it definitely seems like PlayStation does have more of a leg to stand on than I originally thought, based on what we can read into those redactions. But
I agree with you, actually. Being a layman and also hearing from Hogue, who I think was very bullish or is very bullish still that this is going to get done. And I trust him because I think he knows. I mean, this is specifically he's not just a lawyer talking to us about this. He's a mergers and acquisitions lawyer. So I imagine that he understands these things better than we will ever understand them. And so I always defer to his feelings, but I also feel like I think Sony has been what can only be described as wildly successful in holding this thing up. It's not getting done in the time frame that they thought it was going to get done. There's going to be no more information. The FTC might outright sue them over this, which is game over. A lot of people are saying that doesn't mean anything. Of course it does. Are you crazy? The FTC is going to, the reason that they're even going to threaten to sue you is to get concessions out of you. That's why I think this Reuters story is important, because this 10-year extraction might be what they want. And I also think it's really, 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 really interesting that Sony doesn't seem to give a flying fuck about any of the other games. They don't even say a word about any of those other games except to talk about them in groups. Like they would have a domination over shooters because of Doom and this and Overwatch or whatever. But they don't care about any of it except for Call of Duty. In some way, if I were at Activision doing anything else, I'd kind of feel like shit, because they're like, just do whatever you want with this show. We don't give a fuck about Blizzard. We don't care about any of that stuff. We're going to get Diablo 4 anyway, and then who knows when you're going to release another game, all this other stuff. So do whatever you want. I really think the singular focus on Call of Duty is completely fascinating, because I thought that, and I'm sure they've had strategy meetings and could have gone in a bunch of different directions, but I thought a more interesting strategy would have been to use all of the games and be like, these create a sort of environment that are going to be totally taken away from us. And that's never been done before, but they don't even make that argument. So I think in some way that might have been a really canny move on their part to say, like, listen, we're not even trying to bust balls, dude. Here's the deal about this one game. That's all we care about. And I think it worked out. And you know what we learned, remember, in the story last week, we also learned that behind the scenes, Google is apparently going really, really hard at this too. And they're concerned about
forgot about that.
They're concerned about the App Store implications. Microsoft has no presence on mobile at all. Phil Spencer talks about that, about how poor their presence is. Sony's is even worse, so Google is looking at it being like, dude, we have a duopoly right now. Total straight up duopoly. We don't want anyone else involved in this. We have enough to deal with our one competitor. And so from behind the scenes, they're going at it for the King component of it. I think this pincer move, they can't coordinate with each other as far as I know. I think that would be illegal. But this legal pincer is putting Activision in a very tough spot. And so Google's going to want concessions about King. And who the hell knows where this all goes? I feel like it's a coin flip personally. That's my gut feeling. I don't presume to know more than anyone else, but
Colin, one thing that I'm curious, since you saw the actual article, this 10-year deal, does it mention anything about Game Pass and PS Plus parity? Because that was something that was pretty important in the document that I think would be insanely important to this potential 10-year concession.
Let me look. I have the term Game Pass and Plus are not even used in the article.
Yeah, that would be my biggest question then, just because they had mentioned pretty clearly in that document about how just the fact it being on Game Pass alone, not even exclusivity, would be hurtful to them. So I would imagine that would at least be part of that conversation. But I'm guessing those details are all wrapped up.
I would also point out that there was something that Phil Spencer, I think, said. I don't really want to get too much more into it, so that's why I didn't even look into it. But since we're talking about it, he said something about PlayStation Plus Sony blocks PlayStation Plus from coming to Xbox. Did you read that? And I'm like, what is going on here? What? Why would PlayStation Plus ever go to? Everything's totally weird right now. I need to know what these guys are saying to each other. PlayStation Plus? That would be crazy. And that would be nuts if Sony did something like that, where they're like, oh, you think it was all going to happen with Game Pass, but actually we're going to be the proliferators. That would be the total left. You know, the meme of the car going towards the exit, and it's like down the highway and then it's turning on the exit. That would be like that move.
Yeah.
So there's so much weird shit that we don't know about, but it goes back into what I've said before about the weird things people do not believe, but that actually happened. And again, it's like the Halo coming to PS4 thing. Like, yes, like crazy shit is discussed. And there seems to be some very interesting conversations going around where we have the CEO or not. The head of gaming, not the CEO, the head of gaming for Xbox openly saying Game Pass on PlayStation and PlayStation Plus on Xbox. I mean, these don't just come out of nowhere. It's amazing. I wish I was a fly on the wall to know what the hell these guys are actually saying to each other and how it all shake out. Could you imagine a quid pro quo in which they come to each other's consoles, where they kind of say like hardware maybe isn't the game anymore. They're already working together on cloud technology. We know that with xCloud. I don't know, man. I think interesting times are ahead. And Sony and Microsoft might be each other's best friends in the future when we're dealing with a lot of foreign entities. Sony is foreign, but they're Western as far as I'm concerned, in spirit. So who knows? But very interesting times ahead. I know we're all tired of hearing about it. I don't want to really talk about it either, but it would be weird to ignore it like it didn't happen. This is a news show. I don't make the news.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's go on to 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience. Remember, we only have 5 left, actually, because we used one earlier in the show due to bad planning on my part. You can submit your inquiries on the weekly thread over on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. Remember to support us over on Patreon if you can to get early ad-free access, the ability to submit these questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas, access to Sacred Symbols Plus, your name in the credits, and more. And we start with Ian Savage. Hey, CC and Big D. My question today has to do with video game leaks and spoilers. The 3 of you have had ample discussions on the matter, so I won't rehash old ground. But it seems the tenor of your conversations have typically been focused on leaked information surrounding narrative and characters. I've been especially feeling this lately as I've been attempting to avoid spoilers for God of War Ragnarok since I haven't picked it up yet. However, my question today is related to data mining. Currently, the live service FPS Hunt Showdown has been experiencing extensive data leaks concerning gameplay and weapons related to their upcoming in-game events. The game has seen events over the last 2 years and continues to see leaked info for at least the last year. The devs remain silent on the matter and continue promoting the game as if nothing is wrong. If someone were to leak data mine info from a game like Destiny, Halo, or Fortnite, how do you think the communities would respond? I feel especially torn because I've been actively participating in these leaks, sharing them with others. What say you, gents? Good day from Waterworld. Thank you, Ian, for writing in. So Hunt Showdown, that's the Crytek game?
That's the Crytek Battle Royale PvE VP kind of. Apparently, it's amazing, but it's also very
it's cool.
It's
it's hard.
It's very niche. I heard that it's a pretty steep learning curve, and it's it's a very hardcore community. But it's a small but vocal, like really hardcore group of people playing that game, and it looks gorgeous. I can tell just by looking at it. It's like, this is too hardcore for me. I can't. I can't dedicate the time.
What do you think about this idea of data mining? We get a lot of information from it.
Yeah,
I don't, because I don't know what the fuck to do with it. How we're giving that information, but they, this information's garnered. Of course, I think the NVIDIA leak was a data mine. SteamDB is a huge data mine where it's just looking at how things are updated. That's how we know Returnal is coming to PC and all the rest. It is different than a leak materially because the information, in some way, I feel like it's less of a gut punch than a leak because it's like, you did this yourself. You for some reason have mentions of this stuff in your own code, and especially on PC games, people are going to decompile this stuff and find it.
Yeah,
they always do. That's why I'm so confused why you are doing this over and over again. You almost have to blame yourself at that point.
The leaks typically are destructive because leaks usually imply that the game is not out, right? But data mining kind of intrinsically, I don't know, like, people will data mine betas, or like technical previews or something like that, and they'll find like some code. I remember there was a lot of stuff in the when the Halo was in beta that they found a lot of stuff related to the campaign, and I think the entire campaign was leaked or something through that in some way. But it's different because players have a chance to play it, You know, it's already kind of out in the wild in some form. The Last of Us 2, those leaks, that was just kind of fucked because it wasn't like, oh, the game came out and now people are running around spoiling. It was literally just the game is months and months away. I'm gonna leak this really crucial information to the point where, you know, by the time anybody even gets a chance to start the game, they're likely going to have it ruined for them. There's a difference between those things. And by the way, you ask how communities would respond. The Halo's constantly data mined. That's how Forge leaked early, and people were making all that cool shit. And that's you know, there's constant stuff in the code that people are talking about, like, oh, this new equipment's coming. I think that's kind of fun, to be honest. I think it's fun to kind of look into that because it's less of a steal your thunder kind of thing than a leak. It's a little bit more participatory, and it actually takes effort on the behalf of like the person. Like the Last of Us leak did not take effort. You know, that was just some asshole who like just knew what happened and then just sort of like shared it, as opposed to data mining for, you know, cool little gameplay things that might be coming to the game at some point, or maybe some code in. I mean, there was something that was recently data mined from Spider-Man PS4 that they were initially working on some form of co-op for that game. Like there's co-op code in Spider-Man PS4 in the PC files, and that's interesting because that's like that leads to speculation. It's like, ooh, was that game going to be co-op, or were they working on it in the sense that maybe that's where they wanted to go, and maybe now Spider-Man 2 is going to do that, because that was my assumption from the get-go with Spider-Man 2's announcement trailer, that like it felt like it had a co-op flavor about it. And so, you know, I don't know. I feel differently about those two things. I think data mining and leaking are two different things, and leaking is definitely worse.
Yeah, I agree, and I leak things, so I'm saying that straight up. I'm surprised that and Dustin, we can go to you if you have anything to say. Am I ignorant in saying that this could be avoided by simply not calling things certain things? Like, I guess I understand in some sense why you would want to call your EXE co-op or something, but wouldn't it just be easier to know that people are just looking for any sign of anything to come and just not name it that? I guess I just don't really quite get it.
Yeah, I feel like if the developer put something in they didn't want you to see, then it's really on them, as you guys were saying. I don't know. Like for me, I understand that if I post a picture of myself or whatever on the internet, I know people are going to look in the background of everything. Seriously, I could post a picture if my bookshelf is back there. Someone's going to zoom in and be like, oh, you big fan of War and Peace? Something. It's like, bro, like that's not the point.
You're a big fan of Spider-Man 2, the novelization?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm serious. Anytime. People always check out the background of your photos. That's fine. Whatever. But yeah, from a developer standpoint, it's like, yeah, if it's in the code, someone's going to find it. And that can lead to major problems. Like you said with Halo, that was a kind of a big deal that happened in that leak. So I'm wonder sometimes if it even could be intentional, that could happen, where
maybe
people leave that in the code and they're like, oh, we'll leave a little cookie trail to let people know what's coming up. Yeah, which
that'd be cool.
Kind of for the hardcore fans.
I will say though, like in Halo's case, I mean, you say it was a big deal, and I think it was as well, but I don't think it had a negative impact on the game. I think in fact it was probably a really positive impact, because they were like, oh, stuff's coming, and it's cool. Right. You know, like I feel like I don't know. That's the difference. I think that there are some things that could be data mined that are like very, very positive for the overall game, because it could signal to the player base that there is a reason to stay around because there's stuff in the pipeline. But yeah, I don't know. It's funny you say that about people commenting in the background, because I see that a lot on Twitter. Like whenever some like e-girl is posting like some OnlyFans like promo thing, and it's like, ooh, nice lamp. It's like, you're not looking at the lamp.
No, yeah, exactly.
Idiot. Who are you convincing?
Stare at those.
That you're looking at the lamp.
I gotta say, related to this spoiler conversation, I know it's not exactly what Ian's talking about, but man, IGN really, really ballsy with a podcast beyond headline that just straight up it basically spoils a major part of God of War, not directly, but directly enough that I saw it. If I saw it, I would have been pissed.
Oh, really?
It's amazing. Yeah, I'll send it to you, Chris. I think they changed it. I'll just send you an email.
Send me. Yeah, I want to see that.
This is what happens when people play games a month early and think that they're like the tastemaker and get to fucking ruin things for other people. You know?
Yeah.
Why don't people just cool out? Because just to kind of spin off of that, I just noticed people being a little fast and loose with just sharing things from PlayStation Network. I don't want to really see your gameplay of God of War. I don't want to see the areas. I don't want to see the fucking weapons. These things are spoilers, you know?
Mm-hmm. Chris, did you get that image?
Yeah.
At the bottom in particular. It's one of those
God.
Colin can't see that. And that's the thing is that I can't believe, honestly, like
that's
whoever
crazy.
did that, it's shame on them. They changed it, and I guess that's good, but unbelievable.
That is a wildly dickhead. That's like insane. I can't wait till you finish this, Colin, because I'm gonna save this.
Yeah,
I'm gonna save this image. That is wild.
Yeah.
That's like narrative transforming.
Yeah,
that's fucked up.
From IGN.
Yeah, I think there is a distortion. I know because I was in the machine. Like there's a distortion when you play games so early. I remember telling people I played Killzone 2, the final version of it with trophies and everything. I beat that game probably 4 months before it came out. It was getting insane how early we were getting games and how games were done. And I feel like when people are getting these games, which is cool, it's like give your critics enough time to play them, but it distorts their view of the acceptability, because there is a strata of things that are, it's okay to start talking about certain things. But like Micah and I were going back and forth, and I was talking about Uncharted 3, and I won't say what it is here, but I consider there to be a major spoiler towards the beginning of Uncharted 3. 2 of them, actually. And I still don't think it's cool to talk about or show that or indicate that even happened. And sometimes I slip up and kind of make more subjective calls about what's a spoiler and what's not. But I try to be mindful of that. I'd rather just know nothing at all. And since I have the discipline to not ruin things for myself by watching trailers, or like my brother Dagan loves reading leaked scripts. It's like his favorite thing in the world. He'll fucking spoil anything for himself. He will. He loves it. He loves doing it. For me, it's a totally different thing, totally different vibe. You know, Dagan knew the end of every Star Wars movie before he saw them in the recent thing. Dagan knew the end of every fucking Star Wars television show. It's like, I want to be the exact opposite and be surprised. So I just think, generally speaking, people need to be less flippant. But the distortion field that these critics go through is serious, because that's a huge mistake. Whatever they showed, I'll be interested to see. It's probably never acceptable to show what they show what they did. If it's going to ruin the game now, it's going to ruin the game in the future. But there is that weird distortion. I totally understand that. And here, you know, great way to not have that trouble in the future. Don't even listen to Podcast Beyond. Just listen to us. Am I bitter that they won't sell me the brand? Yes. Just for the people that are unaware, that's my old podcast. And I tried to buy it a couple of times because I want to make it into a retro PlayStation podcast. But they continue to do it with like its 17th and 18th host or whatever. It's like, okay.
Hey, so this might not be anything, but I feel like it's worth noting just because it happened like while we were recording.
Yeah.
Naughty Dog changed their logo across all socials, and I don't know what it means necessarily, but it's of a very specific style, and it doesn't look like anything it doesn't look like it. It could be nothing, by the way.
It's like icy.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that they made a point to do that.
Oh yeah,
it is December 1st today.
Is that really? Would they do that because it's fucking winter?
Yeah, maybe.
I guess that makes sense.
When you first said that, I was hoping it was going to be like, oh, they redesigned it finally, because I hate the Naughty Dog logo.
Do you really?
Yeah, I just think there's Naughty Dog that name doesn't line up with the games anymore. It hasn't since the PS2 era. I wish they had a better name than that personally, but that's my whole.
I don't know,
a lot of people
like
disagree with me on that, of course.
Yeah, I like the name.
But I like the. I was like, oh, I would love their logo to be an actual dog of some sort. I think that'd be cool, like something or like the face of a dog or something like that, or I don't know.
Yeah,
I wonder.
just like a fat asthmatic dog. It's like really heavily breathing.
That would be great. Yeah, like one of the ones that shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
We willed into existence.
A pug breathing in eternal torment.
Kill me. All right. Jeffrey Willingham wrote in and said, hey, CDC, what's the most depressing introduction to a game you can recall? I just played Ni no Kuni Wrath of the White Witch for the first time last night, and the beginning of the game really hit me. Thanks as always for the great content. Take care. Great answer.
Mm-hmm.
The beginning of Ni no Kuni is some of the saddest shit I have ever seen in my entire life, to the point where I'm like, I can't even understand why you're doing this to me. Why are you doing this to me? For people that, is that a spoiler? I don't even know if I won't even say it, but it sets you off. Let's say,
I mean, it's the beginning of the game.
Yeah, I guess you're right. It's the very beginning of the game. Your mom dies or disappears, whatever. And you're trying to find her, basically. And you're a little boy. And for some reason, I'm a mama's boy through and through. I have a very good relationship with my mom. And for some reason, I have a great relationship with my dad, too. I don't want to say like I don't. But I'm a mama's boy, like many Italian boys on Long Island. And that really hit me in the field. I remember that was a game I got early. I remember playing it over Christmas break that year before I reviewed it early the next year. And it was sad to the point of tears, where I was like, what the fuck? This is the way we're going to get going? And then it turns into some sort of weird Pokemon game, which makes it even more unsettling. That game is marvelous. If people haven't played Ni no Kuni, there's a PS4 version of it. The sequel, much less so, but that game, man, what a fucking game that was. Out of nowhere. Level 5, Studio Ghibli, or is it Ghibli? I never know. I always get it wrong.
Yeah.
Does anything come to mind for you, Chris, as far as sad openings to a game?
Honestly, the only one that I can really think of, and maybe it's just on the top of my head because we've been doing a lot of content that pertains to it on Last Stand anyway. But the first Last of Us is probably the only one that I can think of I've played games that are overall sadder, but there is a like I think the ending to Shadow of the Colossus is like, if you're paying attention, is pretty fucking brutal. But and even Last of Us Part 2, I think is like way sadder. You know, like there's like a lot of sad experiences overall, but I think the intro to The Last of Us is pretty strong, to the point where I can't think of another game that's made me feel that way in the opening moments. Definitely throughout, but never in the beginning like that one did.
Anything for you?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, I think Chris's answer is what initially came to mind to me, and saying like I can think of insanely depressing moments in like What Remains of Edith Finch is a game that has some really, really deeply sad moments. But maybe from this year, I don't know, I felt pretty sad at the beginning of Stray. Well, the kitty gets separated from
that was sad.
the rest of the cats. Made me something about animals being sad.
Yes.
That can be extra depressing.
Definitely.
So, but yeah, play What Remains of Edith Finch. Even if the intro isn't sad, the rest of it is.
Yeah.
Sad, but also good.
In fact, it's funny you bring that animal thing up, because one of my favorite moments of God of War so far is that you do a quest with some wolves. And, and I was like, this is awesome. I like this. I feel this on a personal level. Kratos. All right.
It is cool.
Speaking of, Kaz and Risk wrote in and said, hi, CDC. With God of War Ragnarok hitting 5 million copies sold and the Norse Saga getting a lot of love from fans, I thought I'd check in on who you think the face of PlayStation is moving forward. Nathan Drake? Spider-Man? Aloy? Joel and Ellie? Kratos? Who is it? Take care, guys. This is a good question. I made the comment last week, you weren't here, Chris, but that Sony... actually, no, I made this point on the rankings PS Sacred Symbols Plus episode, so you were there for this, which is that Sony squandered Sackboy as a mascot that they could have actually done something with, I think. I don't think it's going to be Ratchet or any of these other anthropomorphized animals that we like talking about a little too much on the show. And a lot of these other characters kind of meld together. I don't know that Sony really has one. And in my mind, it's weird because it's so detached from current day PlayStation, but it still feels like Drake, if anyone. is the PlayStation character to me. I don't know if that's how people feel. The sales certainly don't really play that out because there are a couple of games that have sold more, but he still feels like the one that crosses meaningfully between generations and was current the entire time. Although you can make the argument that Kratos did it longer, I would argue that Kratos went through a long period of time beginning after God of War 3 through Ascension and all the rest where he had no relevance at all. While I think Drake has had relevance since 2007. God of War came out in 2005, so it's really not that big of a difference. I wonder if you see any of them though, Chris, as like a mascot, and he calls it the face of PlayStation.
Yeah. I don't think it's Spider-Man. He doesn't. He's too ubiquitous. So that's off the table.
Right. It's important. I'm sorry to interrupt. People are confused about this, Chris, and I do want to put this out there that Sony only owns the movie rights to Spider-Man.
Right.
It's not Spider-Man is associated with PlayStation through that Sony Pictures ship, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's not something Sony owns.
Yeah, it's also like there was that meme early on about the PS3's font being the same as the Spider-Man movie font because Sony Pictures. It was a whole thing, but Sony does not own the concept of Spider-Man. That is still very much. That's why Midnight Suns is not an exclusive and why he can be in there and all sorts of different things. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like of these characters, I feel like Kratos is the strongest purely because there is some distinctive character design to him that is aided by the fact that he's been around for a long time. That hiatus that you talked about after God of War 3 with Ascension and then the brief lull period while they were making God of War 4 or God of War 2018, that is worth taking into account. But Kratos I feel like as a silhouette, like he's got those blades and he's got like the red stripe. Nathan Drake is, I mean, for all intents and purposes, he's a guy, you know, and Aloy, I guess, is like a little bit more distinct. I
think they would want Aloy if they could choose.
If they could choose, probably. But I think there's no question to me, like personally, like lately, especially. I mean, even before God of War Ragnarok, I just think Kratos just says something about. There's something really cool about Kratos existing in that PS2 era and going from that to what we now recognize as like a recognizable modern PlayStation character, and it's all really natural. I feel like that connection that he has to the early days is kind of seminal, and it's kind of important in making a mascot because it's like, yeah, he's brutal or whatever, but there is actually a character there that is worthy of. I mean, to me, in my head, Crash Bandicoot is still the, like when I see Crash Bandicoot, I think of the PlayStation because that was like even, I mean, you could even take those original Crash games and kind of like extrapolate them to what they would mean later on in the sense that like Naughty Dog really nailed 3D in a way that other people hadn't. They made, like people throughout the industry were talking about Crash Bandicoot because how can a game look this good? Like this looks so beautiful. It's like texture rich. It's like really like the foliage is really dense. It's funny to think about, but Crash Bandicoot 1 was a graphical powerhouse at the time, and it was insane. No one had ever seen anything like it. Much like people will look at something like The Last of Us 2 and they'll be like, "Wow, I've never seen anything that looks like this. This is crazy for video games." And so to me, that polygonal, you know, whoa. Like that's quintessential PlayStation because it does everything, or it encapsulates a lot of the things that I found special. It was like this graphically powerful machine that played games that you could play on N64, but they looked way better. And I remember playing like Spider-Man by Neversoft on the N64 after I'd played the PlayStation version, and the N64 version doesn't have cutscenes. It's just still images with like the text of like the dialogue written underneath it. And I'm like, holy shit. What a quantum leap this is over the competition in my eyes. But modern, I think it's pretty safe to say that it's Kratos.
Dustin, what are your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I think Chris is right. The angle that's just interesting for me to think about is that I think Sony's been very intentional. At least, I don't know. It seems like it to me that they don't want a mascot. In fact, yeah. I think that they love the idea of their lineup. They've been doing this for a lot of years. I remember at like PlayStation Experience getting the shirt that had the constellations on it with all the different characters that had like Kratos and Aloy, stuff like that, Nathan Drake. And even in the the boot up sequence, which I guess they tailor them to each game, but they also have the ones that have all the different characters. And it's funny thinking about it, just because while there may be a big benefit to having a mascot or like a central brand character in the short term, that can also fuck you later if that character is no longer appealing to a lot of people. I feel like, I don't want to go too hard on this, but Master Chief was and sort of kind of still is the face of Xbox, and he kind of sucks right now. Like, it's not necessarily the brand you want to attach to that everyone thinks of right now for Halo or for Xbox. Things have not remained at the tippy top for Halo. Even when Call of Duty.
In fairness to that character, though, that's mainly the TV show. The TV show is terrible.
Right.
But yeah, you're right.
So
it's yeah.
But like, even like with like if Sackboy, I just don't know if they really tried hard to make Sackboy their character. I think it probably would have been a mistake, because I think people kind of moved on from Little Big Planet. I'm not saying it was a bad game or anything, but I don't know if that's really what people are interested in.
There is an element of with Sackboy Run. I don't know if this is fair, because obviously I haven't played the game, but when I heard about that game, I remember feeling like, I don't know how to quantify this in a single feeling, but there's a feeling of try hard. Do you know what I mean, Dustin? Like it's like,
you mean Sackboy's Big Adventure?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Sorry,
I think that's the mobile game.
Sackboy Run is the mobile game.
Yeah,
but the Sackboy's Big Adventure, like that felt like they were trying really hard to kind of like. It almost felt like they were scraping fucking Sackboy out from the back of the closet, like, you get out here now. You're on the team again, and it's like, yo, he's just like, let him chill. He did his part.
Right, and I feel like too, just with Sackboy, that the idea of the handcrafted world has been done too often now. Not too often, but we've seen it before. Nintendo totally did the whole handcrafted thing with like the Yoshi yarn game, and they did a few other games that were kind of in that
Kirby
style.
yarn as well.
Kirby yarn, right? Yoshi's Crafted World was another one. So it's kind of like, okay, we've seen this type of thing before, and it's cool on PlayStation 5, and I know a lot of people really like that game. I'd like to get back to it at some point, but it's like, why wasn't it Astrobot? Felt like that would have made more sense for modern PlayStation is to do an Astrobot game at launch. And surely they are working on some kind of Astrobot. I guess we got that small little thing that came with the PlayStation 5, but we need more Astrobot, please.
Yeah, it just felt like they didn't do anything with Sackboy for too long, so that when they brought him back, it kind of felt desperate, as opposed to like if they had consistently kind of up kept him, because he's not like Kratos, you can't. There's no depth there. You're not gonna have like a tragic story where Sackboy's dog is mutilated by a fucking sewing machine or something. Like it's like you can't really do that with that character. He exists to exist in a fun way, and they kind of let that slip a little bit too long.
Sack infant. All right. Jeremy Craves, I promised we would get back to you. He wrote in and said, "Yo, CDC, what's a game you love and don't understand the criticism the game receives? I love Ghost of Tsushima and almost take offense to any criticism of it. Vice versa. Colin likes Days Gone and I don't get why. Chris hates Horizon and Colin loves it. Do you hate Horizon? I don't know if that's true.
I don't hate it. I don't. There are things about the more modern one, the most recent one, that I do feel like encapsulates all of the things I do hate about open world design, but I don't hate Horizon.
Okay, fair enough. And then Dustin somehow likes Kingdom Hearts and so on. Thanks for another year of great content. Can't wait to see the new show take shape in 2023. Yes. New show coming January 2nd, 2023. Very excited about that. All right. So, Dustin, let's go to you first. Anything strike you as the game that confuse? He says, what's a game you love and you don't understand the criticism the game receives?
That's really hard for me to answer, because I feel like the games I love that have strong criticism, I totally get it. Like, for example, Nier Automata is one where I get why people don't like that game or just can't get into it at all because the aesthetic. I find that frustrating, because I think if people were to pull down their barriers a little bit and be a little more open-minded, that they would find something that they wouldn't expect from something like that, something really intriguing and deep. But I get it at the same time. And I don't know, as I get older, I feel less the need to convince people to love the things that I love. I always, it's fun to put up a good fight and try to convince people of things, but it's just like, whatever. I understand that I especially understand for Kingdom Hearts why people don't like it. I feel like at this point I would never try to convince somebody to get into it, because I know it's dumb, and that's fine. I still like it.
What comes to mind for you, Chris?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I was racking my brain about this ever since I read it in the document this morning, and it's hard for me to it's hard for me to think of a game that and maybe this is because I don't necessarily pay that much attention, right? Like if I like a game, I just like it, and if somebody criticizes it in some way, I usually just feel like, all right, that's fair. Like it's not every game is for everybody, and I just sort of shrug it off. But I feel like if I were to go through all of the games that I've ever loved, the one I'll say I don't understand the criticisms that have been. I don't understand the hate boner that has randomly popped up for Skyrim over the last several years. Like I understand that it's really ubiquitous, and I understand that it's very, maybe people are tired of hearing about it, and they're tired of seeing it for sale on new hardware or whatever. But like, there's been a kind of universal, like, you know what? In retrospect, Skyrim's not really that good. And for me, that to me is kind of insane, because that was a seminal moment in video games. Like that was I remember that. I was in college when that happened, when that game came out. And I remember being absolutely consumed by it. Would I be as consumed by it today? I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I've already played it. But I could easily imagine that had I not played Skyrim before and I just started playing it today, I could see myself getting lost in it in the same way. Maybe not as intensely because I'm a little bit older now. I'm a little bit more jaded. But there's something really special about that game. And yeah, there is something about there being like 5 voice actors total that gets kind of maybe grating, but like to me it's cool that a game can be that engrossing and yet still like you can see the strings. It reminds me of like a really good Broadway play in that sense, like not one-to-one in the sense that you're being delivered a great narrative, but in the sense that you understand none of this is real. You understand that the characters are walking around a little wonky. You understand the characters have the same voices as each other, and there are some characters or some actors that are playing dual roles, obviously. And you understand that it's not going to have the depth that is necessarily present in more modern games. But I just think the universal kind of like, no, actually, I'm too cool for that now. Like, actually, I never liked it, actually. I think that's lame and dumb.
Yeah. I think that's lame with everything. I always make that claim with music, especially. Where people pretend. I brought up Limp Bizkit earlier, where people are like, "Yo, Limp Bizkit always sucked. I hated Limp Bizkit." It's like, dude, Limp Bizkit was huge. I remember everyone loved Limp Bizkit. Yeah. Now it's like, so I've always tried to keep it real. Me and my friend Ramon always talk about that with music, where I'm like, I have no airs. It's just like whatever. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
As for me, I'm going to answer the question a little differently, because he says a game you love and don't understand the criticism the game receives. I don't love these games, but I don't understand the criticisms of them, and that's Call of Duty. Call of Duty is arguably the most dominant cultural entertainment force ever made. Not only from the amount of money that it makes, but from actually the sheer level of dominance uninterrupted over 20 years. I haven't played Call of Duty in a few years, and I know people have they like the way shooting feels in one game or the other and all the rest. I just think that when you do something at that level for that long, there is clearly something very deep going on that has a lot to do with the way the game feels. It's not just inertial. It's not just it exists, because there are lots and lots and lots and lots of examples of things existing and then not existing, not because they didn't exist per se anymore, but because people moved on. people aren't moving on from this thing. It's clear.
Mhm.
This is going on since the PS2. We are now maybe midway almost through their PS5 era, which is crazy. And, maybe a little less, like 2/5 of the way through. And I look at that and I hear people's like, and we don't really talk about it on the show, but I read things and see people talking about, what are you talking about? This thing they made a free version of it and it's still selling more than every other game. And they have the free version of it. And they have the mobile version of it. There's just clearly something there. And I just feel like you got to give it to them. When you think about the Beatles' dominance, now they broke up, of course, but that era was like 6 or 7 years. Is there any film series that is like consistently? People will look at Marvel and I'd be like, have they all consistently been basically the same, one after the other, 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 with a little bit of increase in money and all that? I'm like, I don't think so. They've all been big. That's probably the closest you're going to get to a comparison. And you can't really argue with the Marvel movies either, I don't think. I don't like that they exist in this number, but I also admit that the ones I've seen I've liked. So I don't know. To me, I try to take a bird's eye view on Call of Duty. There's got to be more to it. Society is ADD to the fucking max, and it gets worse and worse and worse. So the longer this goes on, the more it says I think about Call of Duty. I got to just throw that out there. I don't know. It's my take.
That's fair.
All right. Let's do this last one here. Paul McFerrin wrote in. Said, gentlemen, what's the deal with Sony's first-party games and New Game Plus? After beating Ragnarok, I was pumped to boot up a new playthrough with my weapons and skill tree maxed, only to see no such option. There's a trend here. God of War in 2018, Horizons 1 and 2, Ghost of Tsushima, each of these titles had New Game Plus eventually patched in. Is this a clever Sony mandate to bump sales when the patch hits? Something else loved the show. I would have certainly imagined that that's exactly the intent. It is a little annoying that they don't give you that option right off the bat, but I think that they don't assume that most people are beating the games as quickly as some of us are beating them. And I imagine that we were talking about God of War spoilers. There are people that have real lives and families and obligations. They won't get the God of War for months. By the time the average person probably beats God of War, I would imagine that this will be available, and the hardcore users might be at that time happy to go back and try again. So there's definitely a strategy there. Dustin, would you agree? I think I can't think of a game other than Ratchet that has a New Game Plus recently out of the box. I could be wrong. First party game.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. Any type of update or new feature or whatever, that's a new marketing push, basically an excuse to talk about your game and get tweets out there and retweets and whatever, Facebook posts. So, and this might seem extra nefarious, but do you think it's possible that they want you to take a break so you go buy another game and then come back to this one or something?
It could be. I think that they probably have some sort of relationship in their data suggesting the longer you play, the more likely you are to buy games. You might like the game more. It might implant some sort of fandom in you. You might feel like you're getting something free. It also gives them an opportunity to pimp their patch notes and make real fixes and then draw people back to the game so they can notice those things. So I think there's a lot to it. But Chris, do you feel like this is a strategy for Sony? And would you like New Game Plus more out of the box?
I mean, yeah, there's no question. I would like it to be there because there was a moment where I was considering, it's like, because by the time you get to the end of God of War Ragnarok, you have such a really interesting kit, especially that you're just like, oh man, yeah, there's a bunch of side stuff that you can do, but it would be really cool to go through some of the more narrative, just go through the story again with all of this stuff. But granted, it would be a little bit disjointed, obviously, but like, you've already experienced the story. It's not going to be ruined for you just because you go through it again with in a non-canonical way. And I was totally down to do that. And then I saw that there was no option. I was like, all right, well, I guess I'll play something else.
Right.
And, that's maybe that is a strategy. I don't know. I think it could potentially be just a consequence of, we know that generally speaking in the games industry, things are often down to the wire, and a lot of time is spent getting the game ready for the first playthrough because that's the one that matters. And oftentimes it's not even really done until like the final few weeks. And even then, there's a lot of polishing that goes into it. There's obviously some day one patch that does a number of different minor things to get it just right. I could imagine that as games get more complicated, and especially in a game like God of War, where, you know, there's a single camera, there's no cuts, and, you know, things aren't level based necessarily in the same way, I could see that being a little bit trickier to figure out in such a way that it wouldn't be worth allocating resources to figuring that out until the game is fully done. And why not? In other words, I do think it is like a strategy to get people back involved in the game, but I also think it's a strategy that's born out of the necessity of just getting the game done on time. I think it's just kind of like, this is the realities of the situation. The new game plus is important, but it's not as important as finishing the game. Let's get the game out. Let's bring it to people, and then we'll hammer the finer details of this thing out so it works competently and polished in the same way that it worked the first time. And we'll get some time. We won't have to be under a strict kind of crunch about it, and we'll get a nice little boon of press when we do it. So in other words, I think you're right. I just don't think it's necessarily the reason. I think it's more the outcome of how games are made. And they say might as well, you know?
Yeah. Well, fair enough. It's interesting because I scrolled up on accident here. It's interesting because I could only think of Miles Morales, I guess, before Ratchet, and then that had New Game Plus out of the box, and both of those required you to play New Game Plus with Ratchet some of the way through, and with Miles Morales all the way through to get the platinum. So that needed to be available right off the bat. Yeah. I wonder what the different strategies are, because there is like this idea.
It's also Insomniac too. Those are both Insomniac.
That's a great point. That's a very good point.
Interesting.
Yeah. That's a great point. Because I wonder the strategy of which is more of a production strategy, and then something that the bean counters would worry about. And it's a good way to extract value, of course, is just you make your game, you release it, you sell it for $70. Then you start supporting it, drawing some people back, some ancillary sales, although you've sold most of your copies. Then you release some sort of expansion. So like the Ghost of Tsushima, Iki Island thing, or like the Legends thing. Then you package it all together into a Game of the Year edition or some sort of collection. Then you sell it again using all those things as saleable items that you didn't really bring attention to the normal gamer to begin with. I don't know. It seems like that's just the cycle of things, the virtuous cycle, as our friend Jim would say, Jim Ryan. All right, it's time to go. I have nothing else to say to anyone right now.
Nice.
Chris, closing comments.
I have to catch up on this. I'm so excited.
Oh, the Kanye thing? Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
I'm just wondering what happened. I wonder how Yoo-Hoo is feeling right now.
Oh yeah, they're probably ass blasted right now. Not good. Yeah, I saw some other things. I just went on Twitter now and I saw some other things he was saying, and I was like, oh man, Alex Jones plus Kanye is an unholy thing. I don't know what it's not even important to the show, but it's like someone needs to get to Kanye and like be like, dude, you gotta. I'm sure people have tried, but it just seems like he's out of control, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not cool. Like he's melting down. In other words, like it seems like it's something that people should be stepping in and being like, what are you doing? Like,
yeah,
help.
I think at this point, people have tried for so many years.
Yeah,
and
probably.
It's at this point, it's just like, hey, we got to watch this Hindenburg crash in real time, I guess.
Yeah. It's, it's incredibly weird because I'm a fan of his music. So it's, that's going to be a tough one for me. We often talk about separating the art from the artist. And that's becoming increasingly difficult to imagine.
Yeah.
Dustin, any closing comments?
I'm trying to make a decision. We were talking about rewards programs and achievements, and the Switch may not have achievements or trophies, but
unbelievably,
the Chipotle app does.
Nice.
And I saw in my email that they have a challenge. You can get special achievements if you buy Chipotle every week in the month of December. Is this a journey I want to embark on? Once a week Chipotle. I practically already do it. Maybe not quite once a week, maybe once every other week or week and a half, maybe, but not an ad, by the way. Although it could be if Chipotle ever wanted to, but I'm thinking, I want to go down the Chipotle achievement rabbit hole.
Yeah, dude. It reminds me of when I was obsessed with Foursquare probably 10 years ago.
Dude,
or so.
Foursquare.
Oh my God. So specific.
Shout out. Wow.
Do you remember that app? Like the
yeah.
the game, of course, Foursquare is fun too, but the app on the phone where you would check into different places and become the mayor of the place. Right. I was obsessed with that at IGN for a couple of years. I was checking in everywhere I went and became the mayor of a few places. I won't brag, but it happened. And I was pretty excited about it. That was a great idea. I don't know what happened to them, but that was a cool idea. I'm sure it got integrated into something else or whatever.
Oh my God, there's a new Indiana Jones trailer.
Oh,
yes.
Good.
That's crazy.
Are they going to
the day the Nazis rise again? Indiana Jones back.
He's here to fight back.
He's here to save us.
Very creepy. Very good. All right, my friends. Well, it was good to be with you guys and good to be with all of you out there. Thank you for your love, kindness, and support of all things Sacred Symbols and Last Stand. We could not do any of these things without you. We appreciate your support on Patreon. We appreciate your support on podcast feeds and YouTube and all the rest. Couldn't imagine doing this with endemic advertising either. So we're appreciative that we don't have to do that. I'm continue to be thankful about that, especially having no relationships with publishers and all the rest. I watched Maddie's video last night that he put on his channel about Mr. Maddie Plays, about his dwindling relationships with publishers and having to worry about all that stuff. It's just so stressful. I'm so glad that I don't have to. So thank you so much for that. We'll see you next time for more. Until then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.